Chapter 1477. Yin-Yang stroked his chin, his brows furrowed, and he did not speak for a long time. If you only want to pay a price and don't care about death, these forces can cause considerable damage to the demon race. But Er's demon court in the future should have some strength left, right? Otherwise, how can we rise again? What's more, the ones outside are all demon race sages. If anyone below the Saint Lord realm were to go out, as long as they encounter a sage, they would be captured alive. It's fine if they die in battle, but if they're captured alive, they'll only become sacrifices for the strategy of annihilation. It won't be good. Yin-Yang chuckled bitterly. I know sister-in-law wants to avenge Big Brother, but you have to think about this. The Fox Empress frowned and said in deep thought, What do you mean, third brother? I mean to give up Fox Emperor City completely. Yin-Yang said seriously, evacuate all the people to the mountainous land on the side of the Bloody Soul Mountain. It's cold there and the place is a little cramped, it may not be enough for all the people to live in, but as long as I mediate, it's entirely possible to leave a place for the Fox clan to rest on this side of the Bloody Soul Mountain. However, we have to be careful when choosing the location. We can't be in front of the demon race's seawater attack. It's even dangerous on the side. I think that when it comes to that extreme, the seawater that's tens of thousands of feet high will overturn everything it passes by. Yin-Yang said, regarding this location, the location that Big Brother and Second Brother chose previously is not bad, but the area is too small. It can't accommodate these millions of people. The Fox Empress sighed. Her expression was somber. Yes, millions of people. The Fox clan, which used to have tens of billions of people, was now left with only a few gathered in Fox Emperor City. How could it not be sad? In fact, not only the Fox clan civilians from other areas, even the civilians who originally lived in Fox Emperor City had mostly died as long as they did not have a certain cultivation base. They were too weak and did not need to experience war. The weather during this period of time, coupled with the shockwaves from the battle between Saint Masters and the invasion of Aura from thousands of miles away, was enough to be fatal. Although the remaining people were all elites and not bad experts, they were not weak at all. However, this number was really pitiful. Moreover, there were less than 30 of them who could be of use in the upcoming battle. At least, from Yin-Yang's point of view, it was no more than that. That's fine too. The entire Fox clan will retreat from this battle. Later on, I will choose 300 experts from my clan to follow you and listen to your commands. The Fox Empress waved her hand to stop Yin-Yang from speaking and said, Don't refuse first. No one in the Fox clan can command these 300 disciples, be it me or you, In fact, 98 of them have already committed suicide. They're nine-tailed white's personal guards. Even if you don't accept them, they will be like walking corpses for the rest of their lives. Ever since Nine-Tailed White left, the fate of his personal guards has been decided. They have all sworn a blood oath. Either they die to avenge the Emperor, or they die together with the Emperor. Dying in this battle is their only path. The Fox Queen said sadly, ever since something happened to them, they haven't eaten or drunk anything. They've been waiting for our decision. As for these guards, I only have one request. Please speak, Yin-Yang said solemnly. Please try to let them die in the battle with the Dragon Emperor or the Phoenix Emperor. At the very least, let them perish in the battle with the experts of these two clans. Let them die calmly and leave with some glory. Yin-Yang uttered word by word, I promise. The Fox Queen smiled faintly. They're guarding the rear. They've been waiting for you. Now, I'm officially entrusting them to you. I want to go back and check on Er's condition. A son lives 100 years, but his mother worries 99. What a wise saying. Sister-in-law, please go ahead. The Fox Queen stood up and left. Throughout the entire process, the Fox Emperor's little fox form had been in the Fox Queen's embrace. Occasionally, it would struggle with its watery eyes, wanting to crawl onto the ground to play. The Fox Queen would pat it lightly and chide it, How dare you be so stubborn when you've already gotten yourself into this state? stay put. Thus, the little fox stopped moving and curled up in the Fox Queen's embrace in an aggrieved manner. Walking to the door, the Fox Queen looked at the fox in her embrace and said helplessly, "These two brothers have been domineering their entire lives. Perhaps they never dreamed that they'd be coaxed by their wives like they're their sons one day. It's their luck and fate indeed." Yin Yang did not know what to say. He stood there in a daze, not moving for a long time. The Fox Queen smiled and left with the little fox. When she reached the door, she said, "Even his personal guards don't know." As she spoke, she patted the little fox in her embrace. "I understand," Yin Yang replied. The Fox Queen did not linger and left. He heaved a deep sigh. The next morning, the Fox clan's higher-ups announced that they were abandoning Fox Emperor City and moving the entire clan. The Fox Queen and Cat Concubine had even collectively expressed their intention to withdraw from this war. Following that, the Nine-Tailed Jade led the remaining top-notch experts of the Fox clan and ordered all of the Fox clan to officially abandon Fox Emperor City. After another tens of thousands of miles, they came to the side of the Crimson Soul Mountain and climbed the snow mountain that was more than 30,000 feet above the ground. The Fox Queen felt that this location was not stable, so she decided to climb higher, going all the way to 60,000 feet. This was already the highest survival limit that the Fox clan could bear. "Let's settle down here then." This place was about 22,000 miles away from the human forces stationed at the Blood Soul Mouth. The ultimate power of the demon race's world extermination stratagem was unknown, but the threat posed by the sea waves would never reach this place. The only thing we need to worry about now is the extent to which the apocalyptic strategy's subsequent actions will affect the land. The cat, Tunton, stood on the side, slightly puzzled. "Big sister, are we going to stay here forever? I keep feeling unsafe. The living space we can choose is extremely limited. By staying here, we can at least witness the final outcome of this war of the century on their behalf, no matter who wins or loses." The Fox Queen said faintly, to them, "The end of this war is the end. Once this war is over, no matter who wins or loses, we will leave immediately. We will go to the residence of 9 Supremes and stay out of worldly affairs, accompanying them as they slowly grow. Only then will we truly let go of everything." "Then, what about you, Isn't you, going with us?" "You, is the emperor of the Fox clan. He has to support the legacy his father left behind. No matter what happens next, it's a responsibility he has to bear. If he's successful, it's my and his father's wish to see the Fox clan rise again. If he's not capable and perishes here, it's just that the younger generation has their own fortune. Whatever happens next will depend on his own luck. Our mission as parents has been accomplished. I only have one goal in life now, to take care of his father and wait for his return." The cat, Tunton, was confused but he nodded. "I understand, big sister. The situation is not clear yet, but I have something to say first." The Fox Queen said seriously, "My two sisters, Yin Yang has done us a great favor by taking us into the Palace of 9 Supremes, but this is also a great taboo for the human race. Therefore, after we go to the Palace of 9 Supremes, the so-called peaceful stay is really just that, we won't go out anymore. If trouble arises because of us, I'm afraid that even the Palace of 9 Supremes will be destroyed because of our identities." "I understand. Don't ask about worldly affairs, live a life of silence." The cat, Tunton, and the Fox Queen nodded solemnly. Looking at the innocent cat ancestor in their arms, the two sisters sighed lightly and sighed endlessly. "I've been trying to sort out their meridians for the past 2 days, but there's no effect. Their meridians seem to have completely solidified. There's still the seed of demonic power in them, but it's completely solidified. I don't know, I know. It's the same for the Fox Emperor." The Fox Queen sighed. "But I believe that as long as we put in enough patience and practice, the situation will get better." She murmured as if to comfort the cat and herself, "I heard that the Palace of 9 Supremes is the best place in the world. Maybe there'll be a turn for the better when we go there, in just a few days, the vast Fox Emperor city was empty, leaving only Yun Yang and 300 of the Fox Emperor's personal guards. In the Fox Emperor city, which used to be extremely noisy, even a light cough would cause a series of hollow echoes. The 300 fox warriors followed behind Yun Yang and his companions quietly, not uttering a single word, like 300 disheartened spirits. The seawater outside the city did not show any signs of rising for now. It was unknown if it was the result of the Fox Emperor and Cat ancestors' efforts or if it was the Eagle Emperor and the other demon sovereigns who had left it as a token of appreciation. Yin Yang spoke to Ji Lingxi as his thoughts raced. Ji Lingxi hummed in agreement and flew away. You want Palace Lord Dongfang and the rest to come to the Fox Emperor city? Shangguan Lingxiu was genuinely puzzled by Yun Yang's actions. Although the Fox Emperor city temporarily belonged to their side, it was still in the demon race's territory. Humans would obviously be at a disadvantage if they fought here. Why did Yun Yang still want to recruit them? I want to make this place into a base camp, a base for the demon race. I've asked Lingxi to look for Palace Lord Dongfang. I've already made it clear that only a handful of experts are qualified to come, and only pinnacle experts are qualified to come. Yin Yang said, although the Fox Emperor and feline ancestor have sacrificed their lives for this operation, the result is considerable. The water outside Fox Emperor City has receded 1,000 feet deep. According to the demon race's previous rate of increase and the speed of the water flow, it'll take about 20 days to make up for this loss. This period of time is a buffer for us, a chance for us to tamper with the situation and make our move. Now that the three of us have been exposed, it'll be even more difficult to destroy the opponent's water fortifications with a surprise attack. I think the Demon Emperor, Phoenix Emperor, Rock Emperor, Sea Emperor, and the rest, these pinnacle experts of the demon race are already gathered here, eyeing us covetously, waiting for us to walk right into their trap. If we really go over, we'll probably be held back after destroying 1 or 2 mountains. It won't be difficult for the remaining experts of the demon race to fill up the gaps in these mountains. Therefore, if we act rashly, it won't be effective at all. Instead, it'll put us in a passive and dangerous situation. The more feasible plan now is to have fresh troops come over. Then, we'll feign an attack and try our best to restrain the enemy's pinnacle experts. Then, we'll let Dongfang and Shiman wreak havoc and buy more time. And this will also be the last buffer we can fight for. This is the only time we can cause widespread destruction. It'll never happen again. Then, we must destroy more thoroughly this time. Yin Yang's expression was grim. The next time we face the demon race, it'll be the time for the strategy of annihilation to be fully activated. Amidst the scheming, Dongfang Haoran and the rest of the group of 10 people tore through space and arrived without anyone noticing. Among them were 2 mid-level sages, 4 high-level sages, and 4 peak-level sages. In other words, there were 3 rulers and Python 9. The group settled down in the Fox Emperor city. The Fox Empress' large-scale relocation of the Fox clan this time had caused quite a commotion. The Phoenix Emperor and the rest were naturally aware of it, but they did not stop it from the beginning to the end. To them, the Fox Emperor was already dead. If they were to trouble the Fox Empress, not only would it be too unethical, it would also incite the Eagle Emperor, Tiger Emperor, and the other demon emperors to rebel. Taking 10,000 steps back, no one could afford to lose this face. Let's not talk about fighting. If they really met face to face, as long as the Fox Queen said a word, everyone would be ashamed to death. The Phoenix Emperor even suspected that if such a day were to come, it would not just be the Fox clan, but a full-blown civil war among the demon race. If the Rock Emperor, the Eagle Emperor, the Tiger Emperor, and the rest saw that the Fox Emperor, the Nine-Tailed White, had just died, and all of them went to bully the Fox Emperor's widow, wanting to annihilate her entire clan. What would the other sovereigns think? Who knew what would happen? It was better to leave as soon as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. After all, there were only so many of the Fox clan left, so it did not affect the overall situation. Therefore, during this period of time, the Fox Emperor city had become an empty zone for all parties to wrestle with. It was probably because the Sea Clan and the demon race were very busy. They were busy almost all the time, so it was good to have less work to do. Countless sea dragons soared in the clouds, summoning the rain. Torrential rain fell madly every day. Countless demon saint experts patrolled the mountains along the coast, while the Sea Clan's pinnacle experts swam not far from the coast. Obviously, they were guarding against Yun Yang's ambush. The demon race hated this human supreme cloud to the core. Just the mention of his name made them grit their teeth, wishing they could eat his flesh and sleep on his skin. Huge silhouettes leaped out from the surface of the sea from time to time. They were probably the Sea Clan's experts patrolling. However, even under such circumstances, the Sea Clan rarely noticed that the middle-level demons of the Sea Clan were disappearing in batches. The sea was too vast, and the number of people in the sea was uncountable. It was the most common thing for the Sea Clan for the big fish to eat the small fish, and for the big demons to eat the small ones. Hundreds of thousands or millions of such middle-level demons were nothing to them. No one would care at all. Moreover, those who disappeared were mostly small forces at the edge of the sea. They were the so-called rogue cultivators of the Sea Clan, the forces of the remote lands. At the same time, many demons from the land had also disappeared from the forests, batches after batches. Some of them were in the know, but most of them had disappeared inexplicably. The strategy of annihilation was being carried out in a chaotic but orderly manner. The top-level demons were all stationed along the coastline, while the second-level experts spread their nets throughout the demon realm, capturing rogue cultivators and demons everywhere. Some of the demons in the tributaries were met with great misfortune. Basically, wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass was left, not even a trace of life was left. Few rogue cultivators and experts from the demon race outside the royal court were spared, and all of them met with misfortune. It was not difficult to see the benefits of having an organization and a backer here. It was directly linked to life and death, survival and destruction. Time passed, and another 20 days had passed in a blink of an eye. There was only 1 month and 5 days left until the strategy of annihilation officially began, as announced by the Phoenix Emperor. Chapter 1478. During this period of time, Yin Yang ventured out more frequently. He teamed up with Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu to look for opportunities to destroy the mountains. With their combined abilities, they could still escape unscathed even if they were ambushed by the demonic race's experts. In spite of this, other than a lucky success that was quickly repaired, the rest of the mission had been fruitless. Out of every 10 missions, at least 9 of them had returned empty-handed. The further they went, the more closely they were watched. There were a few times when they were ambushed by the demonic race's experts, falling into perilous situations and narrowly escaping death. As a result, they did not manage to destroy the mountains even after a dozen consecutive attacks. It was more like they were there for the demonic race's experts to vent their frustrations. No matter where the 3 of them went, at the very least, they would encounter about 10 opponents. Then, after a few dozen breaths, they would gather a force of 40 to 50. Then, after another buffer, the other party would have more than 100 sages. Yin Yang, Shangguan Lingxiu, and Shangguan Lingxiu's frequent attacks, but all of them returned empty-handed. The demonic race's experts were delighted and delighted. I love to see you guys running for your lives, and I love to see you guys helpless against us. We know you want to destroy the mountains. The mountains are right here. Come if you can. The demonic race's higher-ups were all refreshed. Yes, the 3 of you are extraordinarily strong. Very impressive, very impressive. But, what can you do no matter how impressive you are? We can't beat you in a one-on-one fight, but we can come together and gang up on you. Other than sighing, there's nothing else you can do. Even if you have godly abilities, how can you break through the demonic race's iron wall of determination? Ha ha ha, there's no other way. As the seawater accumulated and was about to return to the scale before the Fox Emperor's destruction, the demonic race's experts were even more confident. Now that things had come to this, it was already extremely difficult to destroy the mountains. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Yun Yang and the other two launched another 3 sneak attacks within the same day. It was obvious that they could not wait any longer, and their battle stance was unprecedentedly desperate. They had almost broken through all obstacles and almost destroyed the waterway. But even though they had risked their lives for so long, it was still futile. This result made the demon race powerhouses even more relieved. Even though the Phoenix Emperor had emphasized time and again that Yun Yang had always planned before taking action, and that he was cunning and full of tricks, he must be plotting something after making such a reckless move. However, they had repelled the mysterious yellow supreme cloud too many times, so their vigilance had been worn down bit by bit. Even if there was any conspiracy, they would just have to deal with it when it came. What was the big deal? Look, the black-yellow supreme cloud is here again. They were repelled by us again, here it comes again. He was pushed back again. There were only 20 days left until the day of the world annihilation strategy. The last 20 days. The demonic beast emperor had to return to take charge of the situation and officially open the altar. The Phoenix Emperor also sensed that perhaps it would happen in the next few days. He, Emperor Rock, Emperor Eagle, and the others were constantly on guard against the various acupoints. The Dog Emperor seemed to grumble a little before he was taken down by the enraged Phoenix Emperor. His cultivation was sealed, and he was taken away by the Dragon Emperor. Emperor Rock and the others could tell at a glance that this was the sacrifice prepared for the world annihilation strategy, the Demon Emperor. However, the Dog Emperor had never been popular, and he was the culprit who had betrayed the cat ancestor back then. Emperor Rock and the others only despised him and did not have any sympathy for him. The other unfortunate emperor that was sacrificed was the Wild Boar Emperor. It was said that this Wild Boar Emperor had never participated in the battle and refused to carry out the orders given to him. Therefore, he was taken down by the Demon Emperor. Of course, the officials also had their own reasons. But no matter what, the 2 demon race emperors that the world annihilation strategy needed had finally been gathered. On this day. On the night when the Dragon Emperor left quietly. The wind and clouds suddenly surged in the sky, and a sudden hurricane started blowing fiercely. The dark clouds that originally covered the sky were blown away in an instant. Yin Yang seemed to have gone mad. He came with the wind, clouds, thunder, and lightning. It was as if he wanted to end it all in one battle, or die trying. The 3 of them were still traveling together, with Yun Yang at the front, Ji Lingxi on the left, and Shangguan Lingxiu on the right. The endless power of wind and thunder that the 3 of them carried covered the entire sky, even replacing the original downpour of clouds. It was as if the sky had collapsed and the sun and moon had lost their light. It looked like this heaven and earth supreme cloud was really going to bring out his trump card this time, defying the laws of nature. Dozens of demon race saints stood up at the same time and flew into the air with a boom. The Phoenix Emperor was the leader of the group of demons. As the Phoenix Emperor approached Yun Yang, he quietly closed his eyes and breathed deeply to regulate his breathing. He was mobilizing the power of his mystical core to ensure that he was at his peak and most complete state, so that he could unleash an instantaneous killing move. It was obvious that Yun Yang had come with a purpose this time. It was probably an extreme move made under desperation. However, his brazen arrival was a rare opportunity for the demon race and the Phoenix Emperor. The Phoenix Emperor was extremely wary of Yun Yang. Even though the demon race's strategy of annihilation was almost successful and victory was within their grasp, Yun Yang's individual ability was too formidable. The Phoenix Emperor had no doubt that the next cultivator in this world to advance to the realm of starry skies end would be Yun Yang. If Yun Yang broke through the shackles of the bound of universe and ascended to the realm of starry sky, even if he did not have the ability to turn heaven and earth upside down like the legendary Monarch, he would still possess the ability to surpass the cultivators of this world. By then, it did not matter even if the demon race had the upper hand. With the existence of Yun Yang, all the sovereigns and higher-ups of the demon race would forever feel like a fishbone was stuck in their throats, unable to rest in peace. Fortunately, Yun Yang's current ability was still formidable, but he could still be killed. There was still a possibility of annihilating him. Even the two girls who had been by Yun Yang's side all the way were harder to kill than Yun Yang. After all, up until now, other than the Phoenix Emperor's sneak attack and ultimate killing move, he had only managed to severely injure Ji Lingxi and had to endure a considerable counterattack. If it were not for the Phoenix Emperor's extraordinary power of rebirth, the counterattack that day would have been enough to severely injure the Phoenix Emperor as well. Therefore, if it was not necessary, the Phoenix Emperor would not deliberately target the two girls. After all, their cultivation base was far below Yun Yang's anyway. They only had a protective arcane skill that they could not hit, but they would still be trapped by the human wave tactic. Yun Yang, on the other hand, was too difficult to kill. Moreover, he had suddenly appeared out of thin air each time and launched a surprise attack. Even if the Phoenix Emperor had the intention to set up a killing trap, it would be difficult for him to execute it. However, what puzzled the Phoenix Emperor was that Yun Yang had always planned before taking action. Why was he so brazen this time? There must be something fishy about this. Although she knew this, the Phoenix Emperor had informed all the demons present at the first instance. However, he still did not want to give up this chance to get rid of Yun Yang once and for all. After all, their combined combat power far surpassed Yun Yang and the other two. Before absolute power, no matter how ingenious the plan was, it had to be destroyed. Rock, eagle, crane, eagle. The four of you, don't join the battle for now. Just pay attention to any unusual movements. I suspect that Yun Yang's main purpose of coming so forcefully is to restrain us. He has other motives. The Phoenix Emperor's voice was calm. Why don't you all go to the top of the mountain, 1,000 feet above the sky? Each of you guard a mountain and watch out for any changes. I'll deal with Yun Yang. The Rock Emperor and the others nodded and left in a flash. The wind and clouds in the sky surged violently. In the clouds, more and more lightning accumulated. The lightning bolts darted through the clouds. In the end, the entire cloud layer was like a huge ball of lightning. It was as if the apocalyptic lightning tribulation was about to descend. As the Phoenix Emperor thought about it, his expression changed suddenly. He waved his hand. Everyone, retreat quickly. Before his words echoed in the air, he was the first to soar into the sky. Unfortunately, it was still too late. At the same time as the Phoenix Emperor moved, the lightning that had been brewing to its peak came down from the clouds in a frenzy. An area with a radius of 1,000 miles was completely enveloped by the lightning. Each bolt of lightning was as thick as a water tank, its power boundless. It was like an ocean of lightning, engulfing all the demons and sea clans within the area. It was a large-scale, indiscriminate attack of annihilation. Countless experts of the demon sea clans paled when they saw the menacing aura descending upon them. They were horrified. The power of lightning had always been heaven's punishment. It was a power that cultivators avoided the most. There was no one who did not fear it 30% or 70%. It was a natural fear. The demons were even more enlightened. No wonder Supreme Cloud had come so brazenly this time. It turned out that he had prepared such a trump card. With such a ferocious threat looming over them, it was inevitable that they would suffer heavy losses. Screech. The Phoenix Emperor was decisive. With a long cry, its body unfolded abruptly, turning into a humongous seven-colored phoenix. Its body was engulfed in endless flames that soared into the sky. Its flaming body floated in midair, and with a loud bang, its body rapidly expanded. When it spread its wings, they were 1 to 2,000 miles wide. In that instant, the Phoenix Emperor actually used its body and wings to fight against the lightning that filled the sky. It used its body to block the sea race and Yao race below it, as well as the mountain below it. At that moment, the Phoenix Emperor's actions could be said to be the pillar of heaven and earth, resisting the destructive power. The Phoenix Emperor reverted to its original form and spread its wings, blocking the sun, the sky, the clouds, and even the lightning bolts. Hundreds of millions of lightning bolts struck the Phoenix Emperor with devastating force. It was a sure kill move. However, the Phoenix Emperor remained unmoved. Even though they were enemies, Yun Yang was still impressed by its decisiveness. The Phoenix Emperor was indeed a peerless emperor. It was decisive and without hesitation. If it had hesitated, the lightning bolts that had been brewing for a long time would have been able to severely injure the demons before it. Even if it could not kill them all, it could have created a considerable opportunity for Yun Yang to kill a large number of demon saints. However, under the Phoenix Emperor's swift and decisive reaction, the plan was broken and the Phoenix Emperor died prematurely. The Phoenix Emperor soared into the sky, the endless nirvana flame burning wildly. It was obviously recovering its original state. The lightning bolts were not so easy to withstand. Even with the Phoenix Emperor's ability, it could only try its best to ensure that it would not be damaged. Yin Yang's heart skipped a beat. He activated his water manifestation power, which he had not used for a long time. In an instant, the towering waves on the sea rose in response. With just a slight build-up, the waves were already thousands of feet tall. This sudden change caught everyone off guard, and countless members of the Sea tribe were swept up by the waves. Many of the sages of the Sea clan present immediately revealed an inexplicable look of shock. What kind of water manifestation power was this? How could it be so domineering? It was even more impressive than the Sea clans. Water manipulation art? Who the F*CK was the ruler of the water? In the next moment, the towering waves rose high again, but they did not attack the Sea clans or the demons. Instead, they rose higher and soared into the air, sweeping and piling up somewhere in the sky. The boundless waves accumulated rapidly, forming a massive wave in midair. When they reached the left, their sudden movement was like the waters of the Milky Way, pouring down to the extreme. Their target was the towering fire on the Phoenix Emperor's back. Water countered fire. Yin Yang wanted to use the Tao of 5 elements to extinguish the Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame by borrowing the force of the waves. If the Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame was completely extinguished, he would have to withstand the endless lightning bolts alone. Even if he could survive, he would be severely injured. There might even be a chance to eradicate it. Unexpectedly, Ji Lingxi hollered, "Idiot, hide!" She pulled Shangguan Lingxiu and crashed into Yun Yang's embrace. "What are you waiting for? Take us in." Although Yun Yang was still a little dazed, he kept the 2 girls away at once and asked, "What is it? What's wrong?" Ji Lingxi said angrily, "You fool, the nirvana flame is an exotic spiritual fire. How can it be extinguished by ordinary water? Using water to extinguish the fire is like pouring oil on the fire. It will only fuel the nirvana flame's power. Running is the right thing to do." Yin Yang was already used to Ji Lingxi's extraordinary knowledge. Without hesitation, he turned and ran. With a wave of his hand, he released Ji. This fellow was not afraid of the nirvana flame, so it was a good idea to keep it as a line of defense. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The torrential water had already landed on the nirvana flame. The Phoenix Emperor, who was bearing the heavy pressure, let out a long howl that shook the heavens. Suddenly, it moved and chased after Yun Yang. At that very moment, the nirvana flame detonated with a boom. The flame soared tens of thousands of feet into the sky, filling the heaven and earth. When the torrential water landed on it, it was exactly as Ji Lingxi had described, pouring oil on the fire. The flames that were originally confined to the Phoenix Emperor instantly turned into a demon that would bring calamity to the world. They burned the entire sky red, and even the clouds were burned to nothingness. As for the lightning, the boundless lightning, it was burned away by the flames. Burning thunder with fire? Yin Yang was dumbfounded. What happened to the mutual restraint of the 5 elements? It was not even close. This was too much of a dark martial art. As the nirvana flame erupted unexpectedly, thousands of miles of the sky above their heads turned into a massive black hole. With the appearance of the black hole, the surrounding spiritual chi rushed over like rivers converging into the sea. However, the high temperature was still there, and the black hole seemed to be in a state where it could not accept the replenishment. It kept making crackling sounds. Gigi was dumbfounded by what it saw once it came out. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I in such a large area of nirvana flame? Gigi was on the verge of tears. Chapter 1479. Gigi was on the verge of tears at this moment. I can devour the flames of nirvana, my master. But I don't have such a huge appetite. With so much flames of nirvana, a conservative estimate would be enough to fill me to death 1,000 times. 1,000 times. Gigi let out a shrill cry as it frantically swallowed the flames of nirvana and fled frantically from the sea of fire. However, the Phoenix Emperor was rushing towards Yunyang, where Gigi was. Even though Gigi was extremely fast, it could not rush out of the sea of fire in a short amount of time. The few feathers on its body were getting brighter and brighter in the flames of nirvana. This was not caused by devouring the flames of nirvana, but by burning. Master, wait for me, I can't hold on any longer. Wait for you? No way. Yunyang turned backward and fled frantically. He was like a fish that had escaped the net, like a stray dog that had lost its home. All that was left was the thought of running away. This time, it was fortunate that Ji Lingxi's reminder was timely. Yin Yang's speed of escape was fast enough, and the Gigi defense line that he had set up beforehand was effective as well. Otherwise, he would have been badly burned again. What did it mean to set oneself on fire? This time, Yin Yang truly understood the meaning of the words. I'm setting myself on fire because I've added fuel to the fire. I'm King unlucky. The saying, one's own sins can't be spoken of, is it referring to me? On the other side, the Phoenix Emperor was still in hot pursuit. It was rare for Yun Yang to make such a foolish move. How could the Phoenix Emperor, who had gained the upper hand, miss such a great opportunity? He had to exterminate this brat. Truth be told, even the Phoenix Emperor did not know why the massive amount of seawater that was poured on him did not affect his flames of nirvana at all. Instead, it was like adding fuel to the flames. It was probably because he had never tried it before. The Phoenix Emperor was the ruler of a race after all. Who would have the guts to pour water on the Phoenix Emperor, the divine beast of fire? Today's fortuitous encounter could be considered a pleasant surprise. He did not expect Yun Yang, as an enemy, to be of such great help. It was obvious that even the heavens wanted to fulfill the Phoenix Emperor's wish to pacify the bound of universe. The Phoenix Emperor was overjoyed. Along the way, she ordered the Sea Clan members in front of her to raise waves and greet her. Because of this, the flames really rose higher and higher. The intensity of the fire was unprecedented. Gigi, who had exerted all its strength, had finally escaped the sea of fire and caught up to Yun Yang, charging straight into his embrace like an arrow. He was probably asking for comfort, asking for love, asking for. In any case, his scalded heart needed to be properly compensated. Yun Yang, who had Gigi in his embrace, cried out from the scalding heat. He almost pulled Gigi out and flung it away, but it was more important to run for his life now. He could just ignore this little bit of physical pain. The Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame had at least tripled in power and was still hot on his tail, pursuing him relentlessly. Below. When Dongfang Haoran and the others who were hiding saw this, they looked at each other in blank dismay. If it wasn't for the fact that this matter was too important and they couldn't act rashly and expose themselves, they would have laughed out loud. This was too amusing. They could not even use voice transmissions. After all, there were too many experts here. The slightest ripple of spiritual energy could be detected with just a glance. In spite of this, the four of them could not help exchanging glances, seeing the almost uncontrollable mirth in each other's eyes. It was not a problem for Yun Yang to use himself as bait to lure the main force of the demon race in pursuit. However, no one, including Yun Yang, would have thought that his plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain to restrain the main force of the demon race would be achieved in such a manner. When the four juggernauts saw Yun Yang run so ungracefully for the first time, sprinting as if he was running for his life, they could not help feeling a subtle emotion. Even if they did not achieve anything this time, just witnessing such an embarrassing scene was enough to make their trip worthwhile. How could there be such a thing? He was helping the enemy to attack himself. Furthermore, this had happened to Lord Supreme Cloud, who had always been known as the Bound of Universes sage, who was unparalleled in his ability to change. It was truly an eye-opener. However, when the four of them thought about it further, they could not help but feel a lingering fear. Like Yin Yang, they did not know that the flames of Nirvana had such characteristics. If the two armies were to fight, the flames of Nirvana would move with the momentum of the water. If the Phoenix Emperor were to set fire to the sea, what kind of disaster would it cause? It was unimaginably terrifying. He watched as the Phoenix Emperor led a large group of demon race sages and sea race sages past him. When he looked back, he could only see the flames on the horizon. Let's begin. Remember, only attack the 4 mountains by yourself. Don't be greedy. If we succeed, retreat immediately. We're in the demon race's territory now. Any mishap and we'll perish here. The human race still needs us. While the Phoenix Emperor was far away and Emperor Rock and the others were observing from afar on the mountain peak, it was the best time to act. Dongfang Howren transmitted his voice hurriedly. The other 3 nodded lightly. Amidst the surging waves, the 4 sovereigns floated out like smoke. They quickly dove in and headed for their target. Emperor Rock and the others were also amazed by the scene that Yin Yang had created. They also felt a sense of schadenfreude. Yin Yang, this bastard, actually has this day. Great, great. He deserves it. I hope the Phoenix Emperor burns him to death with a fire to prevent any future troubles. The 4 sovereigns could not help but gather together. How could they not be happy to witness such an amusing event with their own eyes? It would be a waste if they did not find someone to share it with. Do you think the Phoenix Emperor can catch Yin Yang this time? Emperor Rock smiled. Yin Yang is too good at escaping. He saw the opportunity early this time, so the chances of completely killing him aren't very high. However, if I'm not wrong, this Heaven's Supreme Cloud will be heavily injured this time. I think so too. Yin Yang's speed is too fast. Even the Phoenix Emperor, who has always been known for his speed, doesn't have any advantage in front of him. But this time, this Heaven's Supreme Cloud will definitely leave an indelible laughingstock in the history of the Bound of Universes war. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. I've shot myself in the foot. Eagle Emperor's beak stretched out as he laughed. The other sovereigns were also smiling. They were in such a good mood. However, at this moment, something happened to ruin their good mood. Boom. 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 There was a loud bang first, followed by 4 to 5 consecutive loud bangs, one after another. The 4 sovereigns' expressions changed drastically. Turning their heads to look, they saw a large amount of turbulent seawater gushing out from dozens of miles behind them. The few mountains that should have stood tall and blocked the flow of the water were long gone. It was obvious that they had been destroyed. Further away, there were still several faint shadows that were destroying the mountains in a frenzy. The rumbling sounds were incessant, stirring one's heart and soul. In the blink of an eye, another 7 or 8 mountain peaks had crumbled. From the flickering figures, the sovereigns could clearly sense a familiar energy fluctuation. It was the aura of their mortal enemies in the Bound of Universe. Bastard! Emperor Rock roared angrily and took the lead to flip into the sky. Without hesitation, he revealed his true form. With a flap of his wings, he tore through space and rushed over. The other sovereigns did not dare to delay and rushed over. However, many things could be done in this gap. In the blink of an eye, another 10 mountains collapsed. The seawater that was originally fixed within the range of the established waterway was gushing out of the newly opened flood channel that was no less than 2,000 miles long. Just by looking at it, the newly opened channel was almost as boundless as the sea. In just a moment, an immeasurable amount of seawater surged out from the gap. Emperor Rock and the other demons were dumbfounded. The current destruction was the most severe since the world annihilation stratagem began. Furthermore, it had happened right under their noses and under their watch. Especially the mountains that were supposed to be guarded by the Eagle Emperor and the Crane Emperor, but now they were gone. The four sovereigns instantly went crazy. Goodbye, goodbye. I'm really tired today, really tired. Dongfang Haoran laughed loudly. Old friends of the demon race, there's no need to be so polite. There's no need to send me off. Ha 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 ha. As they laughed, the four sovereigns unleashed their maximum speed and tore through space. In a flash, they were thousands of kilometers away. Emperor Rock roared with extreme grief and indignation. Dongfang Haoran, you cowardly rat. Stay and fight me. I don't dare. Ha ha ha, I admit that I don't dare. Emperor Rock, worry about your own mountains. Remember not to tire yourself too much when moving the mountains. It's not worth it if you tire yourself out. As the saying goes, where there's life, there's hope. If there's life, there's hope. Dongfang Haoran's laughter came from afar, but he had already disappeared. Emperor Rock knew that he couldn't catch up. He was so angry that his face turned red and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Emperor Crane and the others wanted to chase after Dongfang Haoran and the others. They wanted to fight with their lives on the line. They couldn't take it anymore. But looking at the surging seawater and the fact that even the experts of the sea race couldn't stop it, the emperors felt a wave of helplessness. They urgently needed to make up for it. Make up for it. His grandpa. What the hell was this? A large number of seafolk corpses gradually appeared on the surface of the sea. There were too many of them to count, and they were all washed away by the flood. This was clearly the result of the four sovereigns attacking the bottom of the sea with all their strength. Just this attack alone had killed hundreds of millions of sea tribe members of different levels. At this time, the bottom of the sea was also in a tsunami. What are you all still standing around for? The Falcon Emperor roared with all his might, move the mountain. Fuck. The remaining less than 30 saints of the Demon Clan and Sea Clan were speechless. They looked at each other and were speechless. Move the mountains? That's easy for you to say. Where were the mountains now? It should be said, where were the nearby mountains? The mountains that were relatively close had been emptied long ago. Now, not to mention the mountains that were far away, there were definitely no more mountains within 3,000 to 5,000 li. If you want to fill the gaps, you can only travel a long distance to move them. It's very easy for us to go there. We only need to move them in a flash, but how is it just a flash and a move to move the mountains back? Why don't you, as a sovereign, try it yourself? Quickly. Are all of you stupid? The four sovereigns roared crazily. All the powerful sages present rushed out one by one in a daze. They all felt the powerlessness in their hearts, the helplessness, the grievance. It was simply. These sages were the cream of the crop in their respective races. After all, they had reached the highest level of cultivation in this world. But now, they were reduced to manual labor. They were all cursing in their hearts, but they had no choice but to do the work. Because of this mentality, the speed at which they moved the mountains became even slower. Halfway through the journey, he actually felt that he had lost all his strength. What was the use of moving them here? If the other side attacked again, wouldn't they still have to move the mountains again? This time, they had to move 5,000 li away. What about the next time, 10,000 li or even further? I'm a tyrant in my own world. Why is it that I can't be of any use in the war here? I'm reduced to manual labor, and the most bitter of all, moving mountains. The Sea Clan's higher-ups appeared from the sea. Under the Ocean King's orders, they used all their power to make the seawater flow back. But Dongfang Haoran and the others had clearly anticipated this. Before they left, the Four Peaks Saints worked together to make a move at the bottom of the sea. The aftermath of that move was still far from disappearing. It affected the sea thousands of li away, forming a large-scale tsunami. No matter how hard the Sea Clan's experts tried, they could only reduce the speed at which the seawater flowed out. On the other side, the tsunami had already formed a huge wave that was thousands of zhang high. It was coming back majestically. Even the Ocean Emperor could only sigh helplessly in the face of such a natural force that had already taken shape. Hurry up and summon the clouds and rain, select 1,000,000 Sea Clan members and go to the other side. Use your power to bring back the seawater that has flowed out. Collect as much as you can. A huge old turtle with a shell as big as a mountain range appeared. It was the Turtle Prime Minister of the Sea Clan. At this moment, the Turtle Prime Minister's face was pale. The amount of water that had flowed out was huge. Even if 1,000,000 monster race members worked together to collect it, how much could they collect? Not to mention that the other side was the life-forbidden zone. That inexplicable power could erode the vitality of living beings at any time. Once 1,000,000 monster race members went over, not many would be able to return. Hurry up and melt the snow mountain. Summon the clouds and rain. The Turtle Prime Minister said bleakly, Your Majesty, there is no other way. This time, let the royal family personally come forward. The Ocean King's mouth twitched. He said unwillingly, All right. Chapter 1480. On the other side, the Phoenix Emperor continued to chase after Yun Yang, chasing him until there was no way out. In the end, for some unknown reason, a certain someone actually plunged headfirst into the sea. The Phoenix Emperor did not hesitate, evaporating the sea where Yun Yang had plunged into with the fire of nirvana. However, he did not find anything specific, so he could only return unwillingly. However, when he returned, he saw the huge gap that had not been repaired at all. He felt like his head was about to explode. What's going on? The Phoenix Emperor's roar resounded through the sky. Even the demon race's sovereigns, who had lived together for tens of thousands of years, had never seen the Phoenix Emperor lose his composure and lose his temper. He glared and almost strangled the Eagle Emperor to death. What's going on? The Eagle Emperor was so stifled that he danced. It's Dongfang Haoran and the others, then why aren't you moving the mountain? The Phoenix Emperor's roar shook the world. Are the four of you just standing here as supervisors? The Rock Emperor and the others could only work obediently in front of the enraged Phoenix Emperor. It was best to avoid conflict for the time being. How many days do you need to repair it? At least 3 days. Bullsh *T. The Phoenix Emperor was furious. 2 days at most. If it can't be repaired, everyone can die. At this moment, the Phoenix Emperor's rage was about to burn the entire world. He wanted nothing more than to burn everything to the ground. It was not that he was not well-mannered, but the choice at this juncture in time was 2F** King impulsive. The ambush by the human race's top combat power was 2F** King incisive. The damage caused was simply subversive, enough to affect the entire situation. Strictly speaking, the gaps formed by the four rulers were located at critical points and were not easy to repair. However, with the demon race's demonic power, it was not a big problem. At most, it would take 2 to 3 days to repair. However, the crux of the problem was obviously not this. Even if the top of the demon race spared no effort to repair this gap in 2 days, what about the seawater that had flowed through the gap? It was definitely not something that could be gathered back in just 2 days. Although the sea was said to be endless, it was not easy to divert the water here. No matter how hard the experts of the sea race tried to divert the seawater back, without around 20 days, it would be difficult to make up for the lost seawater. The time for the strategy of exterminating the world was set to be 20 days later. This time was fixed and could not be changed. The Demon Emperor had personally made a sacrifice to the demon ancestor, and his name was heard from above the 9 heavens. If he couldn't fulfill his promise, who would bear the wrath of the demon ancestor? All members of the sea race, all members of the dragon race, all members of the sea race and the demon race. The Phoenix Emperor was enraged. Everyone, perform your duties and do your best to repair the flaws. Those who transport water, those who create clouds and rain, and those who melt the volcano. Time is of the essence, Meng Hao said. We can't afford to lose even a single moment of time. Starting today, the demon soul sacrificial rite will trigger the volcano to erupt. Sea folk, move all the targeted underwater volcanoes here. Stuff them into the waterway gap as fast as possible. If there are any leftovers, send them to the Blood Soul stronghold. Starting today, the prelude to the strategy of exterminating the world will be activated. The Phoenix Emperor's extreme rage exploded from the bottom of his heart, causing him to act almost crazily. This was because he clearly recognized the reality. The situation had changed drastically. If he did not adapt to the situation, the strategy of exterminating the world that the demon race and sea race had painstakingly prepared might really come to a premature end. This outcome was obviously a heavy responsibility that even the Phoenix Emperor could not bear. On the other side, in the Fox Emperor city. What should we do next? Dongfang Haoran looked at Yun Yang. The four rulers still had unconcealable smiles on their faces. For the sake of safety, the Bound of Universe humans had only sent 4 rulers to participate in this operation. The other 6 saint-level experts did not make a move and only stayed behind to provide support to ensure their safety. Reality proved that the support was indeed useless. In terms of the outcome of this battle, there were only 3 words: exhilarating. Not only had they managed to stop the world annihilation stratagem, but they had also personally witnessed the mysterious yellow supreme cloud, whose might had shaken the world, flee in a sorry state with his tail between his legs. Furthermore, it had been caused by him. The 4 rulers felt a great sense of accomplishment, and they felt extremely carefree. Brother Yun. Shiman Fanfu looked serious. The next time you do something so dangerous, don't bring sister-in-law along. It's too dangerous. As a senior and someone who's experienced it, I have to say something about you. Look at what you've done. Yin Yang looked frantic and depressed. Was this something I did? Do you think I wanted to? You're too young and inconsiderate. Dongfang Haoran looked displeased. Tell me, what do you think you're doing? If sister-in-law's pretty face is. Tell me, it'll be a lifelong regret. He looked exasperated at Yun Yang. The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. These old things, not only are they making fun of me, they're also trying to sow discord between us as husband and wife. I don't believe that you wouldn't have used the fire of nirvana if you knew how domineering it is. Don't fall for it, both of you. These people aren't good people. Yin Yang told the 2 girls. However, the 2 girls glared at him in unison. Obviously, Dongfang Haoran's voice was filled with concern, allowing his provocation to be effective. Humph. You just don't care about us. Humph. Maybe you're thinking that it'll be easier for you to find another one after we're disfigured. What a wild ambition. You're insane. You must have a lover already. You must have someone outside. Men are all big pig trotters. Do you think we don't know you're a playboy? Full of flirting thoughts. You've gone too far. You're openly harming people. Yin Yang looked aggrieved. He had no idea where the 2 girls were coming from. That man, Dongfang Haoran, and the rest were delighted to see that their provocation was successful, but they continued to fan the flames. Cough. Sister-in-law, calm down. Actually, it's not a big deal. It's not that bad. That's right, it's just a small matter. I already knew that Brother Yun isn't that kind of person when I went to drink with the courtesans the last time. Sister-in-law, please calm down. I can guarantee that nothing happened between Yin Yang and the girl from the brothel called Little Lotus. There's nothing between them. Yin Yang's nose was almost crooked from his anger. Is this how you mediate a fight? I just want to ask, is this how you mediate a fight? Are you trying to kill me by harming people so openly? Seeing how the 4 of you are so leisurely and carefree, it seems like you have the pearl of wisdom in your hands and everything is under your control. I, Yun, am just a small character with a small nose and small eyes. I am young and inexperienced, so it is difficult for me to ascend to such a grand hall. How can I be brothers with the four of you? Yin Yang's expression was cold as he said faintly, the bound of universe's plan to deal with the demon race's apocalypse shall be handed over to the four of you. The four of you are experienced and far-sighted. You must have a plan in mind, so I won't embarrass myself in front of you. He was clearly saying that he was unhappy and that he was going to quit. The four rulers were dumbfounded. After a while, Dongfang Haoran said, "What are you doing?" Yin Yang knows that he's young and inexperienced. He has the heart but not the strength. That's all. Then how do we continue? I'll have to ask you. My only suggestion is that we can consider fighting with our mouths. Your mouths are very sharp and rare in this world. It'll be a waste if we don't use them. Isn't it just a joke? You can't even take a joke at such a young age. Bei Gong Lioli pouted. Yin Yang rolled his eyes. What do you know? Ji Lingxi is already looking for trouble with me. Your joke is equivalent to sending a knife into her hands. Even if she knew that it was nonsense, it would never stop her from using this as a pretext to annoy him again and again. You're all men with wives. Why are you still doing this? Don't you feel guilty? Is this all you've accumulated after tens of thousands of years? Humph. Yin Yang was infuriated. After the ruckus, Yin Yang sat down in a sullen manner. How could he not do anything if he said he would? He continued with the discussion. He finally understood that these old fellows were all cowards who bullied the weak and feared the strong. He could not be nice to them. Once he gave them a little, they would take advantage of him. Should we continue to wreak havoc? Dongfang Haoran suggested. The previous operation had been successful. The four men led by him had made a joke out of Yin Yang because they were in a good mood. The consequences were severe and Dongfang Haoran was filled with regret. However, the root of this was not his fault. It was Shimen Fengfu's bad taste that had flared up. It was more important to get down to business, wreak havoc. It's already very lucky to have succeeded this time. There's no chance of success again. Yin Yang sighed. After this incident, the Phoenix Emperor will definitely increase his guard against the waterway in his fury. If we go there without knowing how to lose, with our current combined abilities, we'll be asking for trouble. We'll just be digging our own graves and digging our own graves. Then what should we do? Is there nothing else to do? Although the apocalypse strategy's progress has been greatly delayed, it's far from being safe. There must be something else, but the only thing we can do now is to wait for a chance and give up on destroying the water surface. Yin Yang's eyes were tinged with a smirk. See if there's any chance to strike at the bottom of the sea. Dongfang Haoran was hesitant. It's easy to fight on land. Although we're in the demon race's territory, we can still unleash our full strength. If we go underwater, especially in the deeper parts of the sea, it'll be difficult for us to use less than 10% of our abilities. If we really start fighting, we'll fall into a terrible state of insufficient spiritual qi. By then, it'll be difficult to even maintain internal breathing. We'll need to catch our breaths. How can we achieve anything then? Leave everything related to the underwater to me. Even Lingxi and Lingxiu don't have to go. Yin Yang said, all of you will stay hidden above the water surface. If you notice an underwater volcano moving towards the shore, don't act hastily. Just keep an eye on it quietly. Find a chance to pour the seawater into the volcano's mouth. Brilliant. The group clapped and cheered. Indeed, the mountains and peaks near the shore were mostly destroyed. Considering the time limit of the apocalyptic strategy, there was a great chance that the sea race would move the underwater volcanoes to the surface. Not only would they be able to seal the gap, but they would also further advance the strategic plan. Yin Yang's plan was to pour seawater into the volcanoes and perhaps destroy them directly. If it was successful, not only would it create a new gap, it could also reduce the number of volcanoes. I've been destroying the mountains by the shore without a care for the cost during this period of time. My deeper plan has been waiting for this moment. Yin Yang pondered and said, if it's successful, it still won't be able to stop the apocalyptic strategy completely, but the support of this tsunami is destined to be smaller than the demon race's planned scale. Dongfang Haoran and the others nodded silently. Yes, and indeed. Even if the apocalyptic strategy caused the world to collapse, even if the mountain of blood soul collapsed, everyone would still have to fight. On the other side, there were already countless experts of the human race waiting solemnly, not hesitating to fight. With the unity of the human experts, the demon race might not necessarily win if they fought with all their might. However, if the torrential seawater entered the bound of heaven and earth on a large scale, then the advantages and disadvantages of both sides would not be the same. When the turbid waves reached the sky, the Sea Clan would hide in the waves and assist the Demon Clan. Wherever it flowed, it would settle down. It was impossible to guard against it, and it was extremely difficult to be discovered. That would be a catastrophe for the human race of the Bound of Yellow. The Blood Soul Mountain can collapse. You must not enter the sea. Yin Yang uttered each word clearly. Therefore, we must treat the sea race seriously. All right. Understood. Following that, Dongfang Haoran and the others witnessed the full strength of the mysterious yellow cloud. First, he summoned the wind and clouds, dispersing all the clouds in the sky. No matter what the Sea Monarch clan and the Dragon clan did, they could not stop him. As far as the eye could see, there were no clouds in the clear blue sky. As the saying goes, the clouds and the rain are all just a painting. Faced with this situation, the Phoenix Emperor was angered to the point of wanting to vomit blood. Then, huge waves surged on the surface of the sea. It was the combination of the wind and water elemental powers, causing huge waves to surge on the surface of the sea. Supreme Cloud is in the sea. Search. Countless experts of the Sea Clan began to get busy. After Yin Yang stirred up the waves on the sea, he saw that the waves had already formed a considerable scale and would not disappear in a short period of time. He immediately dove into the bottom of the sea and brewed a new wave. Chapter 1481. Untitled chapter of I Am the Supreme Being. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1482. Hurricanes howled in the sky as if there was no end to them. On the surface of the sea, huge waves surged, each higher than the one before. They surged forward, triggering the water in the entire waterway to form a whistling sound. Once a tsunami was formed, even a saint-level cultivator who could move mountains and seas, as well as the stars, would have to expend a great deal of effort to quell it. It was not something that could be resolved in a short amount of time. Once, the Phoenix Emperor and the higher-ups of the demon race and Sea Clan had envisioned that once the strategy of annihilation was successfully activated, the bloody Soul Mountain would collapse and the disastrous flood would engulf the Bound of Universe. The human cultivators would have to face the invasion of the demon race and Sea Clan as well as deal with the flood. They did not expect that before the flood disaster could reach the Bound of Universe and harm the human race, it had already begun to harm the demon race. Yin Yang's thoughts were simple and brutal. Don't you want to use the flood and the tsunami to deal with the Bound of Universe? I'll use the water and the tsunami to deal with you then. The waves surged from afar. Driven by the howling wind, they swiftly formed the eye of the storm, surging tens of thousands of feet into the sky. The immense force contained in the torrent caused countless members of the Sea Clan who were caught in it to be crushed into pieces and sent to the underworld. As the torrent dissipated, the water that retreated was merely brewing the next wave of a more ferocious charge. They came one after another, one after another. In just a short while, the surface of the sea was already littered with the corpses of countless members of the Sea Clan. Faced with such an unprecedented disaster, even the high-level combat power of the Sea Clan who had reached the level of honor and saint would be hard-pressed to escape if they were accidentally drawn into the center of the vortex, let alone the ordinary members of the Sea Clan. The unprecedented massacre also caused the chi of karma that Emmy and Yun Yang had been yearning for to surge into their deific consciousness space with a force that was even crazier than the tsunami. It was continuous and endless. If one were to look at it from the surface of the sea, it would be a scene of the end of the world as far as the eye could see. In spite of this, the natural disaster was only the surface. More devastating disasters were coming one after another. At the bottom of the sea, the countless members of the Sea Clan who were busy moving the volcanoes also welcomed a wild undercurrent of hope. At first, it was just a small whirlpool in a certain area, but in a very short time, it gradually formed a small whirlpool that rotated at an extremely fast speed. Several patrolling sea race warriors saw this but didn't think much of it. It was too common and they were used to it. His face was filled with curiosity and interest. "Look, there's a small whirlpool here. It's spinning pretty fast. It's really fast. I just don't know if bubbles will appear at the bottom if it spins so fast, haha." However, under the watchful eyes of the Sea Clan warriors, the small whirlpool didn't bubble. Instead, it started to spin at a shocking speed. The direct consequence of this situation was that it slowly moved the water around it, and the affected area was also expanding rapidly. In just a few dozen breaths' time, the whirlpool had turned into a tornado that was at least several thousand feet tall and had a diameter of over 100 feet. And this monster that had already taken shape was still growing. The speed of the whirlpool was getting faster and faster. More and more water was moved, and the area was expanding little by little. Everything happened too abruptly and unexpectedly. The Sea Tribe warriors who witnessed the huge change and fell into a state of bewilderment did not even have the time to scream. They were directly sucked into the whirlpool and involuntarily spun in it, from start to finish. In less than 10 minutes, the whirlpool had already grown to a thickness of several thousand feet. At this level, the human-made tornado could already move with the help of the growing inertia. It didn't need too much force anymore. This also meant that it was impossible for external forces to stop this tornado. The underwater world also began to show unusual and intense turbulence. The size of the tornado that had expanded to a considerable scale had new movements. It actually began to move. Although it was extremely slow, it was unstoppable. It moved bit by bit at the bottom of the sea, and as its body became thicker and bigger, everywhere it passed, it was not just a mess. Not even a blade of grass grew, and there were no signs of life. There was no doubt that there was grass growing at the bottom of the sea. There were also many small creatures, but they were all destroyed by the sudden appearance of the tornado. "Stop it. Stop it with all your strength." A Saint Emperor of the Sea Clan rushed over when he heard the news. His expression changed greatly when he saw the situation. "Mobilize people, surround the whirlpool, and cast the waves in reverse. Use the whirlpool to counter the whirlpool, and use force to eliminate it." It had to be said that the way this Saint Emperor of the Sea Clan dealt with it was quite appropriate under normal circumstances. But this time, countless Sea Clan experts had reacted quickly, but before they could cast their spells, they were sucked into the whirlpool. Countless undersea buildings were affected by the whirlpool one by one, and they collapsed without any chance to resist. Everywhere it passed, the tornado did not seem to stop. Not only did it move faster and faster, but its size also continued to increase. Its speed was at least 10 times faster than before. Facing this sudden change, all the buildings of the Sea Clan that the tornado passed through were destroyed. In the time it took to eat a meal, the area of destruction of the tornado had expanded to thousands of miles. Moreover, the tornado was still moving forward at an extremely fast speed. It was unstoppable. The entire bottom of the sea was filled with turbid waves, so dark that one could not even see their own fingers. Coincidentally, the Sea Race Imperial Palace happened to be in the path of their advance. The tornado was still raging as it forcefully rolled over. At this time, the diameter of the tornado had already exceeded 200,000 feet. A tornado of such a scale could no longer be stopped by human power. Even Yun Yang, the one who created this whirlpool, could only guide it along. His own power was not even a fraction of the whirlpool's power, In other words, the tornado had already matured, and it was enough to cause a huge disaster and devastation. Rumble, it was only a momentary stalemate, but the majestic Sea Clan's palace had turned into ruins. Many members of the royal family were sucked into the whirlpool. In this short span of time, tens of millions of souls had perished in this whirlpool. Many experts of the Sea Clan were still struggling for their lives in the whirlpool. It was a pity that even Saint Venerables and holy monarchs could only barely protect themselves in this whirlpool, ensuring that they would not die instantly. However, to do something to help others out of danger, that was simply wishful thinking. At this moment, the bottom of the sea was filled with filth and bright red. It was dyed with the blood of countless Sea Clan's living beings. The whirlpool continued to expand on its own, its momentum increasing as it spontaneously destroyed everything along its predetermined path. Yun Yang hid at the bottom of the sea and watched the scene, thinking, this should be about time. In the beginning, Yun Yang was in the center of the whirlpool, deliberately guiding the whirlpool's rotation, even the direction of the whirlpool. Later on, the whirlpool's power increased exponentially due to its inertia, becoming so strong that even Yun Yang dared not stay in the center of the whirlpool. The extreme power of the endless accumulation was terrifying. It was to the extent that Yun Yang had turned from the initiator of all this to a mere bystander now, watching everything happen and evolve with cold eyes. The operation this time had exhausted all of his spiritual energy, mystical chi, and the power of the endless divine art. However, it was all worth it. The result was at a level that could shake the entire world. The karma chi, in the form of a tsunami, forcefully poured into his spiritual sense space in an endless stream. How much was it exactly? The chi of karma that could not be seen with the naked eye was too much and too thick for Yun Yang's eyes to see it. How much could it possibly be? Emmy remained still, rooted deep in the sea, absorbing the chi of karma that surged in like a whale swallowing the sea. Emmy, who had always been known for its tolerance, felt like it could not bear the burden, even forgetting to cheer out of habit. The most conservative estimate was that it had only been a little more than 2 hours since they had entered the sea. However, the amount of karma chi they had collected was more than what they had collected from the 1st to the 7th level. In fact, it was several times more. What's more, this number was still growing. It continued to grow at an unimaginable and unbelievable speed. This is bad. Report to His Majesty quickly, ask His Majesty to return and assist. A golden-armored Marine clan expert charged out of the whirlpool with all his might, letting out a shrill cry that tore his throat apart. A mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth as he screamed. It was obvious that he had only managed to escape the whirlpool after expending a large amount of life force. His body swayed as he muttered, "It's over, it's all over, the royal family, it's all over." There was no need to report anymore, Sea Emperor could already see it now. On the surface of the sea, the monstrous waves that Yun Yang had created were still roaring, but anyone could tell that it was much calmer than before. However, it was a tree without roots and water without a source. It could no longer stir up any more waves, and its lethality had been reduced to the very end. It wasn't much stronger than an ordinary wave. Only the aftershock was left, and it looked quite powerful. However, it was at this moment, when the demons and the sea people thought that the waves were about to stop, a whirlpool suddenly appeared somewhere on the surface of the sea. The sudden appearance of the whirlpool did not attract anyone's attention because the waves were still roaring. Even if someone had accidentally seen it, they would not have paid much attention to it. After all, the appearance of a whirlpool on the surface of the sea was all too common. However, the seemingly ordinary whirlpool expanded in the next moment. The center of the whirlpool became 1,000 feet deep in an instant. The abrupt appearance of the whirlpool and its unusual suction force had sucked many of the Sea Clan's warriors into it, caught off guard. However, these were the Sea Clan's experts, so they had their own ways of dealing with the gravitational force of the whirlpool. All of them managed to escape without any casualties, but everyone was shocked. There was no other reason than the fact that the whirlpool was too terrifying. Since they were the Sea Clan's warriors and ace cultivators, they were naturally top-notch experts in controlling water. How could they not know how difficult it was to create such a whirlpool in the sea? Yet, someone had done it, and the whirlpool was directed at them. The whirlpool continued to expand, causing the center of the whirlpool to be even deeper. It looked like the eye of a devil, incomparably deep, devouring everything in its path. What's going on? Sea Emperor stared angrily at the sudden appearance of the whirlpool, but deep in his eyes was a thick sense of dread. The whirlpool had obviously risen from the bottom of the sea. However, creating such a huge whirlpool from the bottom of the sea was not something that could be done by humans. Even if it was the Sea Emperor himself, if he wanted to do the same, he would need to prepare for a considerable period of time. Exhausting all of his energy would not be enough, and he would probably need to expend a certain amount of his original strength to succeed. Thinking deeper, this was a whirlpool that had rushed from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the sea. It was so huge, and it was still expanding. It was simply terrifying. The more he thought about it, the more horrified the Sea Emperor became. He did not dare to imagine the situation at the bottom of the sea. Suddenly, the Sea Emperor roared, and a shining yellow rod appeared in his hand. The moment this rod appeared, a golden light shot up to the sky. The entire demon realm was illuminated by this golden light, and the whole world was filled with brilliant yellow light. Even the bound of universe could see the sudden dazzling golden light in the sky, as if the sun had descended on the world. At this moment, countless humans, Sea Clan, and Demon Clan held their breaths. They all turned to look at the other side of the golden light. The Phoenix Emperor, who was soaring in the sky, suddenly stopped and turned his head to look at the dazzling golden rod in the Sea Emperor's hand. His eyes suddenly shot out an inexplicable light, and he murmured emotionally, "Sea-suppressing divine staff. I should have guessed it. This sea-suppressing divine staff is in your hands." The Phoenix Emperor took a deep breath and suddenly shouted, "Sovereign of the seas. Hand over the sea-suppressing divine staff." Hand it over? The Sea Emperor was furious. Why? He held the sea-suppressing divine staff in both hands, but it was as if he was bearing an endless weight of a mountain. Even with the Sea Emperor's cultivation and strength, it was still very strenuous, as if the weight of the sea-suppressing divine staff had exceeded the limits of what he could bear. The golden light on the sea-suppressing divine staff became more and more intense, illuminating the entire universe. As if he had accumulated enough energy, the Sea Emperor stabbed the sea-suppressing divine staff into the water, right into the center of the giant whirlpool. He turned to hold the staff with one hand and stood steadily on the surface of the sea, looking like a deep pool of water. The boundless yellow light of the sea-suppressing divine staff shrank abruptly and spread out from the surface of the sea, covering the entire surface of the sea in an instant. Then, it was calm again. From the moment the sea-suppressing divine staff was plunged into the water, all movements from the surface of the sea to the bottom of the sea disappeared. The surface of the sea returned to being as calm as a mirror, without a single ripple. The sea-suppressing divine staff lived up to its name of suppressing the sea. Its power was exactly the same. Yin Yang had expended his cultivation base to multiply the power of a peerless expert, complemented by the power of wind and water, and accumulated for a long time before he could create the tornado. It should have been unstoppable, but unexpectedly, it was wiped out by the sea-suppressing divine staff in an instant. From the surface of the sea to the bottom of the sea, there was not a single ripple. All the members of the demon race and Sea Clan who witnessed this scene with their own eyes were dumbfounded and speechless for a long time. Finally, with a soft swoosh, the Phoenix Sovereign came before the Sea Emperor and said sternly, "Hand over the sea-suppressing divine staff." The Sea Emperor was furious. "How dare you? This sea-suppressing divine staff is the treasure of the Sea Clan's heritage. What reason do you have to snatch it?" The Phoenix Sovereign was furious. "The treasure of the Sea Clan's heritage? Nonsense. You're making things up. This staff is obviously the treasure of my demon race's patriarch. Back then, my demon race's patriarch shook the world with one strike, using his own power to assist the monarch. That's how he was able to make a pact with the founder of the Bound of Universe, in exchange for the vast land of the demon realm. For the sake of the demon race's survival, the patriarch didn't take the sea-suppressing divine staff with him when he transcended this world. Instead, he left it in the demon realm to guard the fate of our race. At that time, the insignificant sea race would be nothing more than loaches. How dare you talk about heritage and occupy the demon race's ancestral treasure? The Phoenix Sovereign's eyes were spitting fire. Hurry up and hand it over. This is the treasure of our demon race to guard the fate of our race. The Sea Emperor's expression was calm. The demon race is the common race of the demon race. Not only is it the ancestor of the Earth demon race, it is also the ancestor of our Sea clan. Could it be that the Phoenix Sovereign is denying that our Sea clan is not a part of the demon race? It's true that the patriarch left the sea-suppressing divine staff to guard the fate of the demon race, but there's a deeper meaning in leaving it in the sea. What's the reason why your Sea clan rarely has any abnormal fluctuations for billions of years? It's because of this sea-suppressing divine staff that suppresses all abnormal changes in the sea. After billions of years of inheritance, this sea-suppressing divine staff naturally belongs to our Sea clan. Just because of your words, the demon race actually wants to snatch it away. Phoenix Sovereign, your wishful thinking is really good. The Phoenix Sovereign was even more furious. You're twisting words and forcing logic. After the war 150,000 years ago, your Sea clan had already become independent and no longer belonged to the demon clan. In the war that year, the ancestors of the Sea clan, who had shed all their blood, were still sleeping on the continent of the demon realm. The resolute words of that year were still ringing in my ears. From then on, your Sea clan is no longer under the jurisdiction of the demon race on land. The Sea clan will no longer be a demon race. Is this something I'm making up? Now you want to call yourself a part of the demon race? Whose wishful thinking is it? The Phoenix Sovereign was furious. Alright, since you call yourself a part of the demon race, then naturally you'll be under the jurisdiction of the demon emperor. As a subject, what right do you have to keep the sea-suppressing divine staff? Hand it over. The Sea Emperor was furious. Impossible, dream on. The demon race sage and Sea clan sage gathered around. Looking at the sea-suppressing divine staff, every demon's eyes were filled with passion. Especially the demon race sage, his gaze was as if he wanted to swallow the sea-suppressing divine staff. The demon ancestor's holy item. The demon race and the Sea clan, who had been working closely together, suddenly became tense because of this divine artifact. Even the Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the others on the distant mountaintops gave up their respective guards and hurried over. The sea-suppressing divine staff was actually so important. Therefore, all the mountaintops were actually unguarded and empty. It was a pity that Dongfang Haoran and the others did not know about this. Otherwise, if they took this opportunity to wreak havoc, there was a great chance that they could completely eliminate the threat of the tsunami attack. Yun Yang, who was at the bottom of the sea, was initially watching from the sidelines happily while recovering his exhausted energy. He was in an unusually good mood now. Looking at the torrent-like chi of karma flowing into his deific consciousness space endlessly, it had only been less than 2 hours and the amount of chi of karma needed to advance to the 8th level was almost sufficient. One must know that to complete the cultivation of the 8th level would require a total of 1 billion chi of karma. It had been accumulating for a long time, but it had only accumulated to 1/3 of the amount, Yun Yang judged optimistically. With the chi of karma that was still pouring in, there would still be a lot left after the chi of karma that was required for the 8th level was replenished. After all, this was only an income of 2 hours. Yin Yang was grinning from ear to ear, still looking forward to greater destruction and more gains so that he could improve further. Unexpectedly, an unforeseen event occurred. An inexplicable, irresistible force came crashing down from the surface of the sea. Wherever the golden light passed, not only did it cause the entire seabed to shine brilliantly, it even caused all the fluctuations to disappear without a trace. Even the endless filth that had been stirred up at the bottom of the sea had disappeared in an instant. At this moment, the entire sea was like a huge piece of transparent jade, sparkling and translucent. It was clear and green as far as the eye could see. It was as if the apocalyptic storm that had been wreaking havoc just now had never existed. In spite of this, the Sea Clan's palace that had been turned into ruins and the many buildings that had been destroyed along the way were a clear indication that the apocalyptic storm was not non-existent, it was real. In addition, there were tens of millions of corpses of the Sea Clan that were floating up from the calm seawater. It was a testament to the terror that had just occurred. In spite of this, the shock that Yunyang felt was indescribable. The tornado just now had clearly taken shape. It was not something that could be shaken by a human. Even if he, the initiator of the tornado, used all his strength and unleashed the power of the two elements of wind and water, or even unleashed all the power of the other elements, he would not be able to stop that destructive power. What kind of power was it to be able to stop such a terrifying disaster, and in an instant, to vanquish it all? He stared at the calm with wide eyes, almost biting his tongue. What was going on? How could this be? Yin-Yang wanted to go to the surface of the sea to see what was going on, but he had expended too much of his energy just now. His energy was completely drained and he was almost at the end of his tether. The only thing he could do was to turn into a small water droplet and hide in the sea, drifting with the waves and slowly recovering. In his current state, he might not even be able to make it to the surface of the sea even if he spent a whole day. However, this was still too ridiculous. Yin-Yang had never thought that there would be such a terrifying power in this world. The sea that had been raging had actually calmed down in the blink of an eye, returning to a state of tranquility. Even if it was a basin of water, the most an expert could do was to freeze the entire basin of water after it had been stirred up, but the rippling shape would still be retained. It was impossible for it to instantly return to a state where there was not even a ripple. Now, however, the entire sea had truly returned to a state of stagnant water. This was simply a miracle. Absolutely unbelievable. Yin-Yang could not understand it no matter how hard he thought about it. At this moment, a war between two races was brewing on the surface of the sea. The opposing parties were the elite experts of the Sea Clan and the Demon Clan. A single word of disagreement would lead to a direct confrontation. There would be no room for negotiation. The Demon Clan and the Sea Clan stood in a stalemate, unwilling to give in. The atmosphere was heated, almost like an arrow on the bowstring, ready to explode at any moment. Sea Emperor held the oceanic suppressing staff with one hand and closed his eyes to cultivate. In a split second, the oceanic suppressing staff disappeared with a soft swoosh. The dazzling golden radiance that shone upon the world disappeared at once as well. Everyone in the bound of universe who had witnessed the dazzling golden radiance felt a sense of loss. The rage in the Phoenix Emperor's eyes burned even hotter. The red radiance intensified and the flames rose. The Phoenix Emperor was already in front of Sea Emperor. They were only inches apart as a calm but chilling voice rang out, "Hand it over. Give it to me." Sea Emperor narrowed his eyes and said faintly, "Phoenix Emperor, do you know that one strike from the oceanic suppressing staff is enough to kill you on the spot with no hope of reprieve?" The Phoenix Emperor was completely unfazed by Sea Emperor's threat. He said coldly, "Give it to me." The Ocean Emperor's seemingly calm face slowly revealed a trace of malevolence. Under the Phoenix Emperor's calm face, a volcano that could erupt at any time was brewing. The two emperors looked at each other silently. After a while, everyone present knew that it was not that these two were not moving. They had already decided to go to extremes. They only needed an opportunity and the war between the two races would erupt in an instant. "Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor." Prime Minister Turtle came forward humbly with his back hunched. He said, "Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor is wise. How can you not know that the bigger picture is more important? What's more important in the current situation? Who's the leader?" There's no need for this old man to elaborate. This is a crucial period that concerns the rise and fall of the Demon Clan. Why do you have to be impulsive and lose sight of the bigger picture because of a moment of impulsiveness? The Phoenix Emperor was not moved at all. He continued to stare at the Sea Emperor fiercely. Prime Minister Turtle still had a sincere and well-meaning expression on his face as he sincerely said, Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor. Even if there's a disagreement, we can still discuss it. We can discuss it at length in the future. The first priority now is to conquer the bound of universe. Everything else should give way to this first priority. After conquering the bound of universe, it won't be too late for us to discuss what will happen in the future. This old man still feels that, at that time, even if it's difficult to satisfy both sides, it's just a fight between our own people behind closed doors. However, if Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor insists on making a decision on this matter now, it will only benefit the human clan for no reason. It's not appropriate. The Sea Emperor looked coldly at the Phoenix Emperor and said, "There's nothing inappropriate about the timing. As long as Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor feels that it's appropriate, it's fine. I feel that this moment is the best time to resolve this matter." The Phoenix Emperor said coldly, "Sea Emperor, no matter when, this sea-suppressing divine staff is the demon ancestors' sacred artifact. Even if you forcefully keep it in your hands, can you really carry it?" The Sea Emperor sneered. "Whether I can carry it or not is my business. There's no need for Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor to worry about it." Emperor Rock and Eagle Emperor looked fiercely at the Sea Emperor and said sternly, "Sea Emperor, the sea-suppressing divine staff should be enshrined in the demon clan's sacred altar. It can't be touched unless it's for the demon clan. Why are you keeping it in your body now? Hurry up and take it out. Don't desecrate the demon ancestors' sacred artifact anymore." The Sea Emperor sneered and completely ignored Emperor Rock and Eagle Emperor's censure. He said, "Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor, the one who advocated for cooperation was your demon court. Now that there's internal strife, it's also your demon court. The sea-suppressing divine staff is the demon clan's sacred artifact. This will never change. No matter where it lands, as long as it's still in the hands of the demon clan and not the human clan, it's enough, isn't it?" The Phoenix Emperor narrowed his eyes and said, "Answer my two brothers' questions first. They are also the leaders of the demon clan, so they naturally have the right to speak about the divine staff's whereabouts." The Sea Emperor said quietly, "I've heard that the Phoenix Emperor is bold and wise. When we first met, I felt that the rumors were true. Why are you so angry now? I've already made preparations for the 10 billion Sea Clan living beings. If both sides still want to continue cooperating, please show your goodwill and sincerity, Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor. If the Phoenix Emperor wishes to cancel the cooperation, then it's up to you to decide whether everyone will live in peace or fight." He sneered and said, "As for your two brothers, they don't have the right to speak to me on equal terms. I'll wait for your reply." "Excuse me." After saying that, without waiting for the Phoenix Emperor's response, he flipped over and submerged into the seawater, disappearing without a trace. Eagle Emperor and Emperor Rock trembled in anger. "What? You're just a stinky loach. Do you think you're so great?" The Crane Emperor turned to the Phoenix Emperor. "Brother Phoenix, that sea-suppressing divine staff, is the Sea Emperor holding it?" The Phoenix Emperor sighed softly and looked at the Turtle Prime Minister, who was bowing to him again and again. He said gently, "Prime Minister, go back for now. Don't worry. Just as you said, the overall situation is more important." The Turtle Prime Minister said humbly, "Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor is very thoughtful. I'm impressed." As he spoke, he turned around and entered the seawater. The Phoenix Emperor looked at the waves on the sea with a solemn gaze. He knew that this Turtle Prime Minister seemed timid on the surface, but in reality, he was a high-level sage. He was not weaker than Emperor Rock or Emperor Eagle. He was a rare peak expert of the Sea Clan. His defense was especially strong, and he was extremely difficult to deal with. He was a formidable opponent. The Phoenix Emperor soared into the sky. The Eagle Emperor, the Rock Emperor, and the others all followed, looking at the Phoenix Emperor. The excitement of these demon race emperors after seeing the sea-suppressing divine scepter still hadn't dissipated. All of them looked at the Phoenix Emperor anxiously, waiting for her response. Now that the situation is against us, we can't get the divine staff back for the time being. When I see the demon emperor, I will explain it to him. Sigh, this time, if the demon emperor is here, there's hope. After all, he's the king elected by all the races. He has a natural reason to control the sea-suppressing divine staff. However, I'm not here in a legitimate position. Instead, I'll be vile. After all, I'm only the Phoenix Emperor, the emperor of the Phoenix race, not the leader of the demons. I advocated for the sea-suppressing divine staff just now out of righteous indignation. The sea monarch doesn't recognize me, so it's not wrong. The Phoenix Emperor sighed. Even if I really snatch it back, so what? Such a divine item is in my hands. I'm not even sure if I can bear to hand it over. If the demon emperor is afraid. The Phoenix Emperor smiled bitterly. Therefore, if we can't get the divine staff back today, there will be no conflict. The reason why we speak so harshly is just to show the attitude of the demons. If we really start a war, it's impossible. I believe the sea monarch is only fearless because he sees this. When the Phoenix Emperor finished speaking, he looked up to the sky and sighed. The Rock Emperor and the others were speechless. Yes, the sea-suppressing divine staff was the top divine weapon in this world. Who wouldn't want it? Once it fell into their hands, how could they bear to hand it over? One must know that as long as the person who wielded the sea-suppressing divine staff had a certain level of ability, he could easily kill other sovereigns with the staff's power, including an elite like the Phoenix Emperor. Whether it was the Eagle Emperor, the Rock Emperor, the Crane Emperor, or any other sovereign who obtained this divine weapon, they could cause great internal strife among the demons. Only the Demon Emperor would be a weapon that could intimidate the world. Go back. Look after our mountain. The Phoenix Emperor lowered his gaze and smiled coldly. Looks like the Sea Clan has suffered heavy losses this time. This Heaven and Earth Supreme Cloud obviously saw that the waterway was damaged and shifted his attention to the bottom of the sea. The Rock Emperor gloated and said, if that Supreme Cloud did something a few more times down there would be a lot of fun to watch. Now, I'm angry every time I see the Sea Clan's arrogance. The sovereigns stood in the air, their eyes fixed on the surface of the sea. The surface of the sea within tens of thousands of miles was occupied by the Sea Clan corpses that floated up one after another. Among them, there were huge fish that were thousands of feet long, pythons, and octopuses. As for the small fish and shrimp, there were countless of them, densely packed together. If we include the small fish, this Heaven and Earth Supreme Cloud has destroyed enough Sea Clan corpses to last time's world annihilation strategy. Perhaps even more. The Eagle Emperor had a look of schadenfreude on his face as he grinned. Brother Peng is right. If we really do it a few more times, just thinking about the ugly expression on the Ocean Emperor's face is already very satisfying. Ha ha ha, the Sea Emperor split the waterway and returned to the Sea Palace. When he saw the state of the palace, he was furious. Who did this? The originally resplendent and luxurious Sea Monarch Palace was now reduced to ruins. It was desolate. All Shaoqin could see were countless royal warriors going in and out of the ruins, dragging out corpses one after another. The Sea Emperor took a closer look and was shocked to find that the majority of the corpses belonged to the royal family. He could not help feeling dizzy. Other than his concubines who were almost all dead, most of his descendants were dead as well. Even the Empress was in a coma. The Empress was not in a coma because of injury, but because she was overwhelmed with grief. Of the 7 sons she had with the Sea Emperor, 5 had died in this incident, a total of 5. The Sea Race's crown prince was also gravely injured in the chaos and was on the verge of death. Search for the Heaven and Earth Supreme Cloud. I want to tear him into pieces. The Sea Emperor could not react in time. When he recalled the scene of Supreme Cloud controlling the water to attack the Phoenix Emperor, how could he not know who the culprit was? His teeth chattered as he gnashed his teeth in hatred. Supreme Cloud. Supreme Cloud. I'll tear you into pieces and grind your bones into ashes. The Sea Emperor roared at the sky, feeling as if his organs were about to explode from anger. Yin Yang was still in the form of a water droplet, but he witnessed the tragedy in the Sea Emperor's palace up close. For a moment, he felt a sense of satisfaction. He suddenly realized that the Sea Clan seemed to be much easier to deal with than the land demons. The land demons had a vast territory. Even if he wanted to, he might not be able to find them. On the other hand, the Sea Clan was even more vast than the realm of demons. However, they were in the ocean, and with their water manifestation power, they were an undefeatable existence. The ocean, in particular, had a special characteristic. As long as the seawater on one side was stirred up, the seawater on the other side would naturally be stirred up as well. It would be great if I could do this once a day. Yin Yang's imagination ran wild. In spite of it, the difficulty was too great. Putting everything else aside, the tornado that he had created this time had exhausted all of his strength. He would need at least 2 days to fully recover. What was it that the Sea Clan used to calm the seawater? Was it a secret art or a race's innate power? That power was too great. It was almost a complete counter to his water aspect, and even other aspect techniques. Yin Yang knew very well that he might not be able to withstand such a mystical technique once it discovered his existence and came charging at him. This was a huge risk, and it definitely couldn't be taken lightly, let alone tried rashly. Still, I can't give up. I have to figure out the cause as best as I can. Yin Yang felt that he had recovered 20 to 30% of his energy and immediately floated over silently. Emmy was fully focused on digesting the sudden surge of karmic qi. It could not be of much help, so Yin Yang's actions were naturally more cautious. Fox Emperor City. Dongfang Haoran and Shimen Fanfu looked grim. Is that the legendary divine staff of ocean? It should be. Beigong Lioli's face was grim. Once the golden light dispersed, the sea calmed down immediately. It's impossible to do that without the divine staff of ocean. The divine staff of ocean has reappeared. This means, the 4 rulers looked grim. It was a divine item that could destroy half of the continent with a single strike. When Yin Yang comes back, we have to discuss this in detail. The situation is getting worse. Chapter 1483. Yin Yang's return this time took a long time. The effect of the divine staff of ocean suppressing staff was not only to turn the seawater into a calm lake but also to suppress the influence of all forces on the surface of the sea. The effect was still there. Even when Yin Yang used his water manifestation power and turned into a water droplet that was no different from the ocean, he could only float up bit by bit and could not float to the surface all at once. However, this was only because Yin Yang's water manifestation power was extraordinary. If he were to act rashly within the range of the ocean suppressing divine staff's power, he would have already brought disaster upon himself and killed himself. Yin Yang slowly floated up from the bottom of the sea in the form of a small water droplet. It took him 2 whole days before he returned to the surface. Once he was out of the range of the seawater, Yin Yang could not wait to turn into the wind and cloud, only heaving a long sigh of relief when he was high up in the sky. The uncomfortable feeling of being controlled and sticky all over finally disappeared completely. It had been a long time since Yin Yang had been in a situation where his life and death were not in his control. The divine staff of ocean suppressing staff had given Yin Yang this feeling that he had not felt for a long time. It was only a strike, but it was already deeply rooted in Yin Yang's heart and could not be erased. Yin Yang was certain that the oceanic suppressing staff's level was definitely higher than the purple jade flutes by more than a level and above his divine edge. Although the divine edge's future was promising, it could not withstand a strike from this staff at the moment. Perhaps when his endless divine art advanced to the next level, it would be possible for the Blade of Heaven's will to have a stronger foundation to fight against the divine staff. As Yin Yang pondered, he suddenly realized that it had been a long time since he had made his move. It was more important for him to go back and inform everyone about the current situation. Yin Yang made up his mind and sped towards Fox Emperor City like the wind and cloud. The divine staff of ocean suppressing staff. Yin Yang's eyes shone brightly after listening to Dongfang Haoran's description of the staff. He did not even say a few words before he sped away, leaving only one sentence: "I'm going out again." Before his words echoed in the air, someone had turned into the wind and cloud again. Then, he quickly flew back to the sea but did not enter the sea. After all, it was unknown if the sea-suppressing divine staff's power was still in the sea. In a flash, Yin-Yang had already arrived at a more secluded spot by the coast. He watched Emperor Rock and the other demonic sovereigns who were stationed on the mountaintop. Yin-Yang watched for a long time before slowly rising into the sky and standing above the clouds again. He had gone through so much trouble to change his location repeatedly, but he was cautious. The demonic race must be on high alert at every corner, in the air and on the ground. Yin-Yang had come with a purpose, so of course, he had to ensure his absolute concealment. Yin-Yang turned into the wind and cloud again, spreading his deific consciousness in the tiniest of ways. His movements were extremely careful, and he didn't dare to spread his spiritual energy over a large area. Instead, he used a faintly discernible spiritual energy to monitor the situation below. Emperor Rock and the others were not weaklings. Once he was discovered, Yin-Yang would have to face another tough battle. Yin-Yang was not afraid of a tough battle, but fighting it out now would not help the overall situation. The key was to see through the other party's weakness. Below, Eagle Emperor and Rock Emperor were communicating through voice transmission. After a while, Tiger Emperor and Eagle Emperor joined in the conversation. The sea-suppressing divine staff must get it back. It can't be left in the sea race. There's no such thing. Brother Phoenix must be anxiously planning this now. It's just that the issue of status isn't easy to solve. That's true. Sigh, Brother Eagle, if you get it, will you hand it over to the Demon Emperor? Emperor Rock suddenly recalled what the Phoenix Emperor had said. Even if he got it, he might not be willing to hand it over. Eagle Emperor did not speak and only snorted. What about you? Heh heh, Tiger Emperor's answer was the most honest. If it were 10,000 years ago, I probably wouldn't hesitate and would hand it over immediately. What's mine is my brother's, and vice versa. If it were 10 days ago, I would still consider handing it over for the sake of the so-called big picture. But now... Tiger Emperor shook his head and sighed. All the martial emperors clearly understood the meaning of this sentence, and it even spoke out the thoughts of everyone present. 10,000 years ago, Cat Ancestor's matter had happened. 10 days ago, Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor had perished in battle under their watch. And these two matters were related to the Demon Emperor. All the emperors fell silent. After a long time, Emperor Rock sighed deeply. Standing on the mountaintop and looking at the surging waves below, he muttered, I suddenly feel that everything is so meaningless. So meaningless. The brothers all laughed coldly. It's just for the survival of the billions of people under me. If it's just me. Heh heh. So what if I'm a demon emperor? Tiger Emperor spoke again. His words could be said to be crazy. If we treat him as a brother, he's a demon emperor. If he doesn't treat us as brothers, he's nothing. More importantly, the Tiger Emperor didn't use telepathy to say this. Instead, he said it out loud. Silence. Be careful with your words. Emperor Rock's eyes widened as he said angrily, how can you say such words so casually? Tiger Emperor's rough face was filled with disapproval. What's there to be careful about? If I suddenly die one day, or if the brothers present suddenly die, I won't be able to find someone to talk to even if I want to. The few emperors sighed. The Phoenix Emperor has gone to inform the Demon Emperor. There will definitely be an explanation for the whereabouts of the sea-suppressing divine staff, Eagle Emperor consoled. Let's wait a while. It would have been fine if he hadn't said that. The moment he said that, the few emperors suddenly felt like they were about to explode. The Phoenix Emperor and Long Yutian have always been on the same side. Everything is decided by the two of them. When have we, brothers, ever participated in the discussion? They have always informed us only after making a decision. Damn it. They say we are brothers, but we are allies. What are we in their eyes? We are just hired thugs. Leopard Emperor spat fiercely. I've cultivated for more than 100,000 years. My words carry weight in my race. Yet, I'm just a hired thug for the two of them. How King aggrieved. The more I think about it, the more I feel like I don't want to do anything. Everything is for the great cause of the demon race, for the survival of thousands of years. Rock Emperor said in a low voice. Tiger Emperor scoffed. The great cause of the demon race? Let me ask you, even if the bound of universe is really conquered, who has the final say? Who will sit on the throne of the bound of universe? As soon as this question was asked, all the sovereigns present fell silent. Who has the final say? Who will sit on the throne of the bound of universe? There was no need for an answer to this question. At the very least, it won't be me. Yin Yang had already eavesdropped most of the emperor's conversation. Through some of his imagination, Yin Yang quickly came to the current situation of the demon race's internal instability. His eyes could not help but sparkle as his imagination ran wild. Yin Yang calculated inwardly. If he were to wreak havoc again and succeed, other than delaying the progress of the strategy of annihilation, it might also further aggravate the knot between the emperors and the demonic Phoenix Emperor. It was impossible for the demonic Phoenix Emperor and the demonic Phoenix Emperor to not pursue the repeated failures of the Emperor's defense. Yin Yang observed his surroundings carefully again and again. The demon race had put in a lot of effort in this defense. There were at least 100 experts from the eagle, rock, tiger, leopard, eagle, and crane races stationed in these few mountains. There were also 6 pinnacle emperors who could come to the rescue at once. Yin Yang wisely chose not to wreak havoc but chose to quietly dive into the sea. Since it was difficult to wreak havoc, it was better to look for another direction. Just now, Yin Yang was surprised to find that his divine sense was no longer as sluggish as before. This meant that the oceanic suppressing staff's power was diminishing. At the same time, it also meant that he might have something to do. The oceanic suppressing staff is the focus of the current disagreement between the demon race and the sea race. It's still necessary to broaden my horizons. In fact, when Yin Yang heard Dongfang Haoran's introduction of the staff, he already had a clear plan in his heart. However, he was afraid that he would overthink it. If it was not what he thought, it would be a waste of effort and be futile. Not only was the demon race short of time now, they were even more so. Now that he had overheard the conversation between Emperor Peng and the others, he finally made up his mind. The oceanic suppressing staff is another direction that can disrupt the cooperation between the demon race and the sea race. Coincidentally, the power released by the oceanic suppressing staff was gradually diminishing, so Yin Yang dived into the sea without hesitation. The dive was very successful. It did not take long for him to reach 30,000 feet under the sea and once again come into contact with the sea palace's barrier. This was a completely transparent barrier. Outside, one could only see the endless sea. Only by breaking through the barrier could one see the real living circle of the sea palace and the sea race's higher-ups. Originally, this sealing barrier had been destroyed by the whirlpool tornado, but with the return of the Sea King, with the power of the divine staff, he instantly rebuilt the barrier. This sealing barrier was a type of sorcery. As long as there was enough Yuan Gong magic power, it was not difficult to rebuild it. Moreover, the Sea King had the divine staff as a supplement, so rebuilding it was even easier. This was the second time Yin Yang had come into contact with the barrier. He followed the previous method and transformed into a member of the sea race with ease, blending in. The situation inside the barrier was just as Yin Yang had guessed. The consequences of the last time he had come to cause trouble had not been cleaned up. It was a complete mess, with members of the sea race who were busy clearing the trash and cleaning the place. Huh? What was that? Yin Yang's eyes widened. He was surprised to see a group of members of the sea race carrying boxes and moving in a certain direction. The items in the boxes were all cores. A box of the sea race's cores. No, it was many, many boxes of the sea race's cores. Don't panic, everyone. This is the last plot. Of course, it's the quickest way to start the final battle, but without the foreshadowing process, it's unpleasant to watch. Chapter 1484. At that moment, Yun Yang's breathing grew heavier. Although there did not seem to be any high-level items, there were too many of them. There were simply too many of them. Yun Yang understood it immediately. These were the Sea clansmen who had died because of the disturbance he had caused previously. The tornado had been too powerful and its lethality had exceeded his estimation. Even he had been in danger, but the oceanic divine staff had calmed the waves and frightened him at the same time. How could he have had the time to collect the cores? This had caused the cores of these demons to remain in their bodies after they had died. Had these been dug out and stored together by the demons when they were collecting the corpses? Recycling? Yin Yang's eyes flickered. You use the trash, I'll use the trash then. You don't need them anyway. It's a coincidence, why not let me have them? Then, he quietly attacked and killed a guy who looked like a whale general of the sea race with one blow. He put him into his divine sense space. Then, he shook his body and changed back to his original appearance. He held a huge box and followed the team in front of him. There were a lot of people cleaning the place, so naturally, there were no high-level experts around. Yin Yang's actions were swift this time and he had done it in his invisible state. Everything was done without a sound, so naturally, no one noticed anything amiss. Since it was a centralized storage, there must be a storeroom for these items. Yin Yang had been longing to find this storeroom. This was all wealth and resources. Moreover, since it was a storeroom to store resources, there must have been more in the past other than these this time. The amount of resources inside would be unimaginable. Thinking about it, Yin Yang was drooling. This was probably God's blessing for the kind-hearted. I'm a character who's dedicated to eliminating the hidden threat to the bound of universe's human race. Of course I'm a kind-hearted person, of course I should be blessed by God. The wealth of the Sea clan is mine, of course. Not long after, an underground palace could be seen in front of them. The Sea clan warriors filed in with the boxes. The guards at the door did not even check them as they walked in unhindered. After passing through 3 sentries, Yin Yang finally entered one of the storerooms. Yes, it was one of the storerooms. There was not only one storeroom in this crypt, there were so many of them that it was unimaginable, and these storerooms were all connected. Yin Yang felt his heart palpitate, his vision blurry. The huge warehouse with a circumference of no less than 10,000 feet was only the outermost area. It was filled with all kinds of jewels, pearls, corals, and so on. Although it was only wealth in the eyes of the common people, this amount was pretty good. The one further in was filled with all sorts of resources and treasures of the sea. There were some that Yin Yang recognized, but there were even more that he did not. It was a dazzling array of items. Then, the next one was an even higher grade heavenly treasure. Further inside was where the inner cores were stored. There were a total of 3 large warehouses. The outermost warehouse of the 3 was obviously used to store these low-level inner cores, which were piled up like a mountain. When the team transporting the inner cores arrived here, they naturally stopped. They carefully stacked up the boxes one by one before leaving as quickly as possible. It was impossible for Yin Yang to go out as well. To him, coming into contact with such a treasure vault was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise, but he, who was said to be able to pluck the feathers of a swallow as he passed by, how could he return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain? How could he not sweep it clean? If he were to return empty-handed, would he still be the raiders of the black and white ruthless duo? Therefore, once he entered the warehouse, he immediately turned into his wind manifestation and blended into the air. He went straight into the innermost small warehouse. It was obvious that the innermost warehouse was where the highest grade of inner cores were stored. Just as Yin Yang had expected, there were not many boxes in this warehouse, but it still made Yin Yang's eyes turn green. Although it was not a lot, it was only when compared to the huge number outside. There were at least tens of thousands of high-level inner cores here. After all, this was the stock of the Sea clan over countless years. They were all Saint Lord and Saint Venerate level inner cores. As for those above Saint Lord level, Yin Yang did not find them. They were probably not here. After all, the higher level inner cores belonged to the pinnacle of this world. Not only could there not be a lot of them, it was even more impossible for them to be stored like this. Yin Yang, who was eager to hunt, was not going to hold back. With a wave of his hand, the entire warehouse was swept clean. He then entered the second warehouse and similarly waved his hand. The third warehouse was actually used to store weapons. Needless to say, he also waved his hand. The Heaven and Earth Treasure Warehouse, with a wave of his hand. All the way to the outermost area, there were tens of millions of mid-level inner cores. Needless to say, he still waved his hand. As for the remaining ones or those that were about to be transported in, this brother doesn't want them. I don't care. One should not be too overboard. One should leave some leeway so that they can meet again in the future. Look at how honest I am. In total, Yin Yang had ransacked all 7 of the Sea clan's warehouses. Only then did he transform into a large prawn with his sleeves fluttering in the wind and skipped away. A certain someone was still thinking, how can the Sea clan, which has been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, only have such a small amount of wealth? There should be other secret warehouses. Why don't they arrange and handle them together? It'll be easier to manage. Humans were always afraid of being discontented. Within a certain someone's deific consciousness, the Sea clan's treasures alone had piled up to a dozen mountains. They were real mountains too, but he was still not satisfied. Not long after, another team of Sea clan warriors who were transporting the inner cores carried boxes into the warehouse. Once they entered, however, the leaders were stunned. Did I go the wrong way? What was the meaning of this empty warehouse? Turning his head, he saw that his companions behind him were all dumbfounded. What was going on? The Sea clan's lack of vigilance was not to be blamed. The warehouse was located in the deepest part of the ocean. It was located in a secluded location and had not been robbed for hundreds of thousands of years. It was because of this that the guards of the warehouse had been replaced with the lowest cultivation base, warriors who had just been able to shape-shift. Who would come to the bottom of the ocean to steal? This didn't make any sense at all. It was impossible. Now, however, this impossible and inexplicable thing had happened right before their eyes, and it was a complete robbery. The entire warehouse had been emptied. Pa! The boxes in the hands of a team of warriors fell to the ground, their mouths agape like hippopotamuses. After a long while, a warrior came back to his senses and suddenly rushed forward, quickly rushing to the other storehouses. This inexplicable action caused the guards of the other storehouses to be shocked. Was this grandson crazy? Yes, the warrior really felt like he was going to go crazy. He turned around and ran, shouting as he ran, "This is bad." Heart-wrenching cries rang incessantly. The guards at the door, who did not know what was happening inside, were still chatting leisurely when they heard the shrill alarm ringing inside. They could not help being dumbfounded. Fire? The warehouse has been robbed. Report to His Majesty quickly. Someone, come quickly. In short, chaos ensued. However, after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the sea race powerhouses flew over from all directions. In the blink of an eye, there was a sentry every few steps, and it was heavily guarded. It was completely different from before. At this moment, Yin Yang had already arrived at the Ocean Palace. He had turned into the wind and was drifting back and forth in the air, wandering freely. The master of the palace, Sea Sovereign, was furious. Of course, he was not enraged because the warehouse had been robbed. He did not know about it yet. The main reason for his rage was the destruction of the palace and the heavy casualties of the royal family. Supreme Cloud of Universe. Very well. I'll remember you. This vengeance, this hatred, is irreconcilable. I've told them to cultivate diligently, cultivate diligently. What about it? All of them didn't strive for progress, it's all your fault for spoiling them. Look at them now, they're all dead, all dead. If they'd worked a little harder, would they have ended up like this today? Huh. Look at them, their cultivation base is at the level of Saint Lord and Saint Venerable. At most, they'll be slightly injured. Look at the good sons and daughters you've raised. How old are they? They've lost their lives in this whirlpool. Aren't you ashamed? Aren't you ashamed? Still crying? Why are you crying? Stop King howling. I don't want to take revenge. Even if I'm made of clay, I'm still a country bumpkin. The problem now is, revenge takes time, doesn't it? Do you think you can cry Supreme Cloud to death by crying here? I have to loosen my belt even if I'm going to the toilet. What are you rushing me for? Sea Sovereign scolded the Empress in front of him. The Empress sobbed, tears streaming down her face. At this moment, a guard came in hurriedly. Your Majesty, something bad has happened. What bad has happened? Sea Sovereign felt like he was about to explode. The storerooms have been robbed. 7 storerooms have been ransacked. What? Sea Sovereign felt like his head was about to explode. What kind of *T was this? In the void, Yun Yang tried his best to conceal his identity. Upon hearing the report, he quickly attached himself to a large pillar and carefully studied Neptune from head to toe. That oceanic suppressing staff. Where did he put it? Just as Yun Yang was about to lay his hands on the staff, Sea Sovereign walked out in a rage. It was only a moment before a blurry yellow light illuminated the entire bottom of the sea. The entire seabed became as silent and solemn as before. It was obvious that the oceanic suppressing staff that Yun Yang had been longing for had shown its power again. Similarly, it was obvious that the Ocean Emperor was enraged to the extreme. Otherwise, he would not have rashly used this treasure. Using this treasure twice in such a short period of time, even a peak expert like the Ocean Emperor would find it difficult to bear. Just then, an order came from the outside. The power of the oceanic suppressing staff the last time has yet to dissipate. Even if that thief has an arcane skill that allows him to move freely in the sea, he's still restrained by the staff's power. This time, the staff's power is activated again. Any clan other than the Sea Clan that is able to conceal themselves with any arcane skill will be exposed. Search the place. Go and investigate. Even if you have to search the entire bottom of the sea and check every corner, you have to catch him. I want to tear him into pieces and grind his bones into ashes. It was a roar that was full of energy, filled with a sense of roughness, but it did not come from Sea Sovereign's mouth. I am the Whale King. I hereby promise that anyone who finds the bound of Universe Supreme Cloud can. It was probably a bunch of generous rewards that were enough to tempt the hearts of any sea clan. Yun Yang listened. He was initially hesitant, afraid that the staff's power was truly unimaginable and all-encompassing, capable of restraining his manifestation powers. After all, he had experienced the terror of being dominated when he had turned into a water droplet previously. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that he was still in his wind form and had not returned to his original form. Thinking back to the phrase, any clan other than the Sea Clan that is able to conceal themselves with any arcane skill will be exposed, he could not help chuckling. That scared me to death. I thought it was true. In spite of this, the chaos outside was real. After a while, Sea Sovereign and the Whale King came in again. Can't find him. Can't find him. There's no trace at all. Yes, this Supreme Cloud is too cunning, and his methods are brilliant. The whirlpool and tornado from before were his handiwork. It's obvious that he hasn't done his best the last time, so it's not surprising that he's stirring up trouble again. Sea Sovereign frowned, feeling rather worried. Sigh, the ocean-suppressing staff that I've used just now wasn't powerful enough. It's obviously not enough to break his unique arcane skill. If he's allowed to remain hidden, it'll be a huge problem. Now, it seems that the loss of the warehouse is only some valuables. Instead, it's this hidden enemy that's even harder to guard against. It's worrisome. The Whale King who had come with Sea Sovereign was unusually tall and muscular in his human form. He was 3.5 meters tall and his waist was more than 2 meters in circumference. His shoulders were broad and his waist round, making him look like a supergiant. A single glance from him was enough to make one feel valiant. At this moment, the Whale King seemed to find it difficult to speak as he said, If your Majesty activates the ocean suppressing staff's maximum power, you should be able to force it out. Maximum power? Sea Sovereign frowned. The ocean suppressing staff was a peerless artifact, a miraculous artifact that surpassed the limits of this world. The last time he had activated it was due to the urgency of the situation and he had no choice but to activate it. Although its power was vast and powerful, it had exhausted the spiritual energy that he had accumulated over the years. Now that he was using it again, it looked as glorious as before, but in reality, it was only a slight activation. It still required almost all of Sea Sovereign's strength. If he were to forcefully increase its power by a level, Sea Sovereign knew that he might not be able to withstand it. It's difficult for the ocean suppressing staff to recognize its master. The vital energy that has accumulated over the years can only be used once. If you want to activate it again, you'll have to rely on the wielder's own strength. The amount of energy that can be activated depends on the wielder's strength. With my current level of ability, the activation just now was basically the limit. Sea Sovereign sighed, even though I am not belittling myself, I know that with my own strength, I most likely won't be able to withstand the backlash of the ocean suppressing staff's second-level explosion. Whale King said, Your subject naturally knows this, but we can work together with the Prime Minister, Marshal, Shark King and the others to activate it. Your Majesty, this is a crucial time. This yellow supreme cloud is eyeing us like a tiger watching its prey. We must find him and eliminate him. If we ignore him, the consequences will be unimaginable. Sea Sovereign hesitated. The reason for his hesitation was, he was afraid. Although working together to activate the ocean suppressing staff was the best way to deal with it, what if there were any mistakes during the activation process? For example, what if the Whale King took the opportunity to steal the ocean suppressing staff? That was a divine artifact that had not recognized its master. It belonged to whoever held it in their hands. Sea Sovereign would never believe that Whale King and the others did not covet it. In the past, the ocean suppressing staff's vital energy was still present. It was invincible in one attack, and anyone who stood in its way would die. Sea Sovereign was also the strongest person in the Sea Clan, so he naturally did not have to worry about others coveting it. But now, the situation was very different. Opposite him, Whale King was looking at Sea Sovereign eagerly, obviously waiting for his suggestion to be accepted. Logically speaking, Whale King's suggestion should be accepted and carried out. Sea Sovereign could not help but fall into an awkward situation. At this time, the hunched and doddering Turtle Prime Minister slowly walked in. Your Majesty, Whale King's suggestion is the most feasible strategy at the moment. Everything is for the Sea Clan. This old subject knows that Your Majesty has concerns, but Your Majesty has held the ocean-suppressing divine staff for many years. No matter what, you should be able to grasp a certain degree of the ocean-suppressing divine staff's characteristics. When we work together, we only need to place the ocean-suppressing divine staff on the platform and let Whale King and the others work together to activate it. Then, Your Majesty will sit in the center and personally guide the ocean-suppressing divine staff's power. I believe there will be no objections. After all, no one is more familiar with using the ocean-suppressing divine staff than Your Majesty. Turtle Prime Minister said, This way, we can ensure that nothing goes wrong. We can also conveniently eliminate that yellow supreme cloud. Sea Sovereign's eyes lit up. This was a good compromise. This process was equivalent to using the Whale King and the others' help to activate the ocean-suppressing divine staff, and he could even maintain his own strength at its peak. Who would dare take away the oceanic suppressing divine staff then? Activating the oceanic suppressing divine staff was enough to exhaust everyone, and there was also Sea Sovereign, who had the highest cultivation base, watching from the side. Anyone who dared to have any evil thoughts would be courting death. Furthermore, if this method was carried out, even external pressure would be easily resolved. This was because this method would greatly increase the top combat power of the Sea Clan, and the threat of the Demon Clan would no longer need to be concerned. All right. Let's do it. Whale King, Prime Minister, you will arrange this. Sea Sovereign agreed without hesitation. The Whale King lowered his head and replied loudly, yes. Turning his head, a deep sense of disappointment flashed across his eyes. Sea Sovereign was in charge, using everyone's strength to activate the oceanic suppressing divine staff. Would they not be working for nothing? All the prestige and benefits would be taken away by Sea Sovereign alone. His suggestion, which he had spent so much effort on, had actually shot himself in the foot. King nonsense. And that old tortoise, why was he so annoying? However, things had already come to this and he was the one who had suggested it. How could he object? He could only go ahead with it. Yin Yang, who was hiding on the pillar, had his eyes lit up. Oceanic suppressing divine staff? Was there such a good thing? Chapter 1485. Neptune, who felt that the situation was in his favor, had a gleam in his eyes. Little did he know that Yin Yang, who was hidden on the side, had a gleam in his eyes as well. Divine oceanic staff? Was he going to take it out now? CK, he was so lucky. He called Emmy immediately to come up with a countermeasure. Yeah, Emmy's voice sounded a little weak. It was probably trying its best to absorb and digest the karmic chi, but the amount of karmic chi it had absorbed in the past few days was just too much. It was so much that Emmy could not bear the burden. No matter how much it swallowed, it could not see the end of it. Therefore, when it heard Yin Yang's call, it expressed a peculiar sense of exhaustion. It had been grumbling about how slow it was in collecting karmic energy, but it was suddenly so fast and abundant. The contrast was so great that Emmy could hardly adapt to it. It had absorbed such an enormous amount of karmic energy in one go, almost causing Emmy indigestion. It had caused Emmy's work efficiency to be unprecedentedly low. However, from Yin Yang's point of view, Emmy was clearly overeating. Yin Yang's words were unmistakably correct. Under normal circumstances, Yin Yang would need at least 50 years to accumulate enough energy to advance to the 8th level. The upper limit could not be estimated. It was entirely possible that it would take 700 to 800 years, 3,000 to 5,000 years, or even longer. The karmic chi of billions of lives. Emmy had finished at least 50 years' worth of food in 2 to 3 days. How could it not be bloated? How could it not? Indigestion was normal. Overeating and indigestion, it was already a good state for it to only suffer from low work efficiency. It would be truly tragic if it died from overeating. Look, that's the legendary divine oceanic staff, the dreamy treasure of this world. Is there a way to take it away? Yin Yang said excitedly. The divine oceanic staff was an item of unprecedented rank. It looked like its rank was not only higher than the purple jade flute, it was even higher than his divine edge. Yin Yang was naturally tempted. This might be the only chance he had. If the Whale King, Neptune's plan succeeded, the situation would be reversed. Yin Yang was still fearful of the divine oceanic staff's power. How could he let go of such an opportunity? Why am I here? On the other side, the Whale King did not dare to be negligent. He quickly gathered more than 20 peak experts of the sea race, all of whom were at the king level. All of them sat cross-legged in a circle, and in the middle, there was a table, just as Prime Minister Turtle had said. The Ocean Emperor took out the sea-suppressing divine scepter and placed it on the platform. This platform looked unremarkable, but it was actually made of rare cold iron from the bottom of the sea. It could be said to be indestructible and difficult to damage. However, when the divine staff placed it there, it produced creaking sounds as if it could not bear the weight. If it weren't for the sea race's experts solidifying their demonic powers, they would have been pressed deep into the ground. That's the sea-suppressing divine staff. Yin-Yang snuck a peek and saw that the oceanic suppressing staff was only a staff as thick as a wrist, emitting a faint golden glow. There was a metal hoop on each end, and there seemed to be words or pictures in the middle. After all, the distance was too far, and there was the interference of the golden light, so it was difficult to see clearly. But overall, it was very ordinary and there was nothing special about it. When Emmy scanned it with its deific consciousness, its vines shook, sending a rare sense of panic and fear to Yin-Yang. Aya, Emmy swayed continuously. Yin-Yang's gaze froze. You mean you can't do anything about it? Aya, Emmy cried out in fear. Yin-Yang frowned. Emmy's reply was interesting. Emmy expressed that it could not do anything about this divine weapon, and was even more innately fearful. There was an incomparable murderous aura left on the golden staff. The murderous aura was the kind of extreme aura that could slay immortals and gods, unbridled and lawless. Such a murderous aura was Emmy's nemesis, so Emmy dared not even touch it. However, Yin-Yang could still try to take it. According to Emmy, this was a divine weapon. However, the original owner of this divine weapon was no longer in this world and had given the divine weapon complete freedom. In other words, this divine weapon was now an ownerless treasure, and anyone could take it. It was just that no one had been able to tame this divine weapon. Therefore, the stick temporarily belonged to the person who held it in his hand. Before the new owner was recognized, no one else, not even the strong cultivators of the universe, could claim this divine weapon as their own. At most, they could only use it to a certain extent. Yin-Yang was amazed. He could not help but recall the ancient legend that Dongfang Haoran had mentioned to him. A demon clan's omnipotent almighty, a monkey clan's great saint, had claimed a piece of territory for the demon clan with the omnipotent staff. Could it be that this oceanic suppressing staff was actually the omnipotent staff? If that's the case, if I can get my hands on it, this staff will be mine? Yin-Yang's imagination ran wild. Looking at the oceanic suppressing staff on the platform, his gaze was unusually heated. What a great item! However, Yin-Yang knew very well that although this staff was a great item, it would never be his. This was an item with an owner. Its owner had only placed it here temporarily. How heavy does this thing actually weigh? Yin-Yang studied it with a frown. Ocean Emperor seems to be holding it quite heavily, and that platform, it's almost collapsed. Emmy calculated carefully and said, Aya, who knows? Anyway, with your current cultivation base, you can at most lift it up, but it's impossible to carry it around. Yin-Yang was speechless for a moment. This was depressing. If that was the case, there was a very high possibility that if he were to snatch this thing, even if he defeated all his enemies, he might be pinned down by the staff when he lifted it up, unable to move. Then, he would be caught red-handed effortlessly. Sect leader Yun stroked his chin, growing increasingly hesitant. If that was the case, would he not be the biggest joke in the bound of universe since ancient times? The thief who stole the staff would be pinned down by the staff, unable to move. Emmy, what if I'm pinned down by the staff? Can I still transform? This was Yin-Yang's bottom line. There were always accidents in this world. Being pinned down by the staff was not the scariest thing. What if he could not transform after being pinned down? Yin-Yang felt that he would definitely break down on the spot. Aya. Emmy seemed to be terrified of the staff to a certain extent, its answer lacking confidence and filled with uncertainty. Probably. Maybe. Almost. Probably. Not very useful. Yin-Yang could not help but chuckle bitterly. What was this? The covetous Emmy had initially planned to keep the staff in his pocket, but the reality was that it was a cheating weapon. Emmy had expressed its helplessness and fear. Unwilling to give up, the Emmy had wanted to try it himself, but Emmy had told him that not only was the item heavy enough to crush a thief like him to death, it could also counter all of his manifestation powers without any blind spots. Did this not mean that he could only wait for the staff to be activated and be forced to reveal himself, falling into a dead end? It was at this moment, more than 20 experts of the Sea clan exerted their strength at the same time. Endless demonic chi surged into the oceanic suppressing staff like rivers flowing into the ocean. The oceanic suppressing staff shone with a golden light, blinding the entire seabed. This golden light was very different from the yellow light from a moment ago. It had a soft feeling to it, and it was closer to the golden light from the beginning. At the same time, an overwhelming aura emanated from the oceanic suppressing staff. The aura was mixed with the aura of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, a domineering aura that could wreak havoc in the world. Other than that, there was also an air of defiance and change of fate. The billowing aura reverberated in the ocean. Yin-Yang was too close to the source of the golden light, almost within reach. Yin-Yang, who was already under immense psychological pressure, felt his state of mind wavering, almost unable to maintain the form of his wind manifestation. Yin-Yang made up his mind, circulating the endless divine art in a frenzy. Only then did his state of mind improve slightly and calm down, preventing himself from being exposed on the spot. He had been calculating in his heart, should I attack? Should I? However, as the Sea clan experts continued to inject their demonic chi into the oceanic suppressing staff, the aura grew stronger and stronger, becoming more and more irresistible. Yin-Yang could clearly feel his manifestation disintegrating bit by bit. In other words, he was about to be exposed. However, once he was exposed, he would be exposed to the encirclement of so many experts from the Sea clan. That would be the worst scenario. Yin-Yang thought nervously of a countermeasure. It was a pity that intelligence was no match for absolute ability, not to mention that there was not much time left for Yin-Yang. The worst situation had still arrived. As the top experts of the Sea clan instilled their demonic chi into the oceanic suppressing staff, the staff grew brighter and brighter. With a soft hum, rays of golden light dispersed. This was the combined power of more than 20 saints. How domineering! The golden light exploded. The entire seabed was completely enveloped by the oceanic suppressing staff's power, even, controlled. More than 20 saints were sweating profusely, their breaths short and their faces pale. It was obvious that they had expended a great deal of energy. The combined power of so many pinnacle experts had only activated the second stage of the oceanic suppressing staff's power, but they were already at their limits. Who knew how high the oceanic suppressing staff's maximum power was? What level, what level, what level? However, at least for now, this level of power was sufficient. As the golden light flickered wildly, it illuminated the entire ocean, reaching everywhere. The unparalleled aura intimidated the entire seabed, unhindered. The oceanic suppressing staff was only quietly placed on the table, but the entire seabed had become its territory. Yin-Yang's manifestation power had completely disintegrated and his figure was revealed. Sea King and the Empress discovered Yin-Yang, who was no longer in his manifestation. There he is. Heaven and Earth Supreme Cloud. Sea King was even more enraged. This bastard, how dare he hide in the assembly hall so brazenly? He was too daring. He had just ordered the search outside, but the target was actually right under his nose. This was simply, a strange feeling of speechlessness surged in his heart. Take him down. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Yin-Yang reacted swiftly, sprinting towards the oceanic suppressing staff like his life depended on it. It was as if he had turned into a ray of light. Sea King reacted swiftly as well, sprinting over as well, laughing maniacally. Supreme Cloud, are you coveting the divine artifact of the Sea clan? You think too much. His voice revealed an extremely joyful tone. Yin-Yang's move was a last resort. There was no other way to deal with it. His whereabouts had been exposed, so he could only take the risk. At this moment, Prime Minister Turtle, Whale King, and many other top experts of the Sea clan were gathered here. However, because they had overexerted themselves, they appeared to be on the verge of death. Their demonic powers were all gone, and even their limbs were limp. For a moment, they could not get up to fight. The only one who could threaten them was the Ocean King. He had to act now. If Sea King made the first move and wielded the oceanic suppressing staff, today would very likely be his death. On the other hand, if he touched the staff first, there might be a turning point and a chance of survival. In the end, Yin Yang was a step faster. Not only did he move first, but he was also closer than Sea King. The staff's golden light shone on Yin Yang at close range. It was only a short contact, but Yin Yang's body was riddled with cracks. Dozens of wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. However, Yin Yang did not care that he was bathed in blood. Mustering his remaining strength, he sprinted towards the staff. The moment the divine edge was in his hands, the saber landed on the oceanic suppressing staff with a loud bang. Clang! The entire sea was violently turned upside down with this roar. In the hall, the golden light shone brightly once more, scattering endlessly. Sea King was only a step slower than Yin Yang. He was the closest to the oceanic suppressing staff among everyone present, so he was naturally the first to be hit by the golden light. He could not help but howl in pain. Due to being struck by the divine edge, the oceanic suppressing staff's self-defense ability was triggered. It was actually a level stronger than the combined efforts of all the experts of the Sea Clan. The unprecedentedly majestic force spread far and wide, affecting everyone present. The saints of the Sea Clan, who were already exhausted, spat out mouthfuls of blood as they fell helplessly. This also resulted in the oceanic suppressing staff remaining on the stage, as steady as a mountain, but the connection formed by the saints of the Sea Clan earlier was cut off immediately. The oceanic suppressing staff's power was immediately interrupted. Yin Yang ignored the extreme counterattack of the oceanic suppressing staff's self-defense mechanism and grabbed one end of the staff at once. At the same time, Sea King was already close to him. Supreme Cloud, die. A thunderous, decisive strike followed. Yin Yang gritted his teeth and did not evade. He arched his back and took the blow head-on. Being hit by Sea King's extreme strike, he saw stars and was severely injured. However, by borrowing the force of Sea King's attack, Yin Yang had already lifted one end of the oceanic suppressing staff. Sea King's expression changed, obviously not expecting Yin Yang to have such strength to be able to move the oceanic suppressing staff. Little did he know that Yin Yang was groaning inwardly. What F** King staff was this? It was 2F** King heavy. At the very least, it had to be as heavy as 8 to 10 mountains. A supreme saint already had the ability to move mountains and fill oceans. A saint would naturally be stronger, but there was a limit to one's strength. For Yin Yang, it was not difficult to lift or even throw 3 to 5 mountains consecutively with all his strength, but the oceanic suppressing staff's weight had to be at least as heavy as 8 to 10 mountains connected together. Otherwise, Yin Yang would not have such difficulty lifting it. On the other side, the Empress of the Sea, who was also a highly skilled martial artist, pounced over in a frenzy. This woman had killed Yin Yang's son and daughter. They were absolutely irreconcilable. Now that they had met, she would naturally go all out to kill him, leaving no room for negotiation. Sea King's second wave of attack came from the other side. Sea King laughed maniacally as he attacked, as if he had seen something incredibly stupid. He did not seem to be worried that Yin Yang, who had already moved the staff, would be able to take it away. Bang, 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 Yin Yang took 3 consecutive hits from Sea King and 2 from the Empress. Finally, with a loud roar and spitting blood, he lifted the oceanic suppressing staff completely and said angrily, "Keep it for your father." With a clang, the oceanic suppressing staff really disappeared from his hands. The Sea King turned pale with fright. At this moment, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He shrieked, "Keep him." The Ocean Emperor was truly shocked and panicked. He never thought that a human without demonic aura would be able to take away the ocean-suppressing divine scepter. That was the demonic ancestor's sacred weapon. Other than being able to slightly activate it with demonic chi, other forces could not possibly touch the oceanic suppressing staff at all, let alone human mystical chi. There would be a strong backlash too. It was because of this that he did not mind Yun Yang coveting the oceanic suppressing staff. Even if I let you take it, can you take it away? To you, the more you touch the oceanic suppressing staff, the more you'll exhaust yourself. I can take the chance to kill you and get rid of any future troubles. It was because of this thought that he was not in a hurry. Even when he saw Yun Yang grab the oceanic suppressing staff, he did not panic. The oceanic suppressing staff in his hand would only become a burden to Yun Yang. He could not even move and would become a live target that would not rest until he was dead. No matter how cunning you are, Supreme Cloud, you'll have to drink the water I wash my feet with this time. Neptune had even made up his mind to let Yun Yang hold on to the oceanic divine staff until he beat him to death. What he did not expect was for Yun Yang to actually lift the divine staff of ocean suppressing staff. Not only did he lift it up, he even took it away. How was this possible? At this moment, Sea King was completely dumbfounded. He dared not believe what he was seeing, almost suspecting that he was in a nightmare. After a moment, extreme shock, extreme fear, and extreme anger filled his heart. My oceanic suppressing staff. My artifact. I almost fought the Phoenix Sovereign to the death, but the artifact that I wanted to hand over was taken away by another person, by a human. At this moment, Sea King, who was on the verge of collapse, went berserk. Howling, he rushed over. Leave the oceanic suppressing staff behind. All the Sea Clan experts supported themselves with all their might and rushed over. Leave the oceanic suppressing staff behind. However, it was not easy for Yun Yang to keep it. How could he hand it over? With a long howl, the purple jade flute in his hand reappeared. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? What followed was a series of bam 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 sounds, 8 ways to fight at night. Poof, 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 the brains of the 3 demonic saints who were at their lowest state burst. Yin Yang grunted and spat another mouthful of blood. He turned into a ray of light and rushed out of the Sea King's hall. Chapter 1486. Seeing that Yun Yang had escaped, Sea Emperor chased after him like a maniac. Stop him! Stop him! Sea Emperor bellowed with all his might, turning into a bolt of lightning. The experts of the Sea Clan behind him struggled to stand up as well. Other than the 3 unlucky saints who had yet to recover from having their brains ruptured, the rest of the Sea Clansmen staggered out, ignoring the fact that their cultivation base had yet to recover. All the Sea Clansmen present were burning with anxiety and trepidation. The divine ocean suppressing staff, the peerless artifact that had been passed down by the demonic race for a long time, had been snatched under everyone's watchful eyes. It had been snatched under the watchful eyes of almost 30 pinnacle experts of the Sea Clan. This matter was simply absurd just by listening to it. It was just a joke. Yet, it had happened. Yin Yang charged out of the hall like a gust of wind and bumped into a troop of thousands of Sea Clan warriors. Without a word, Yin Yang barged in without any room for resistance. The hundreds of warriors who bore the brunt of Yin Yang's charge were smashed into minced meat. Yin Yang's charge, on the other hand, had created a bloody path in the troop of thousands of people. Blood splattered in the air as far as the eye could see. Everything had happened too quickly. The cultivation base of the Sea Clan warriors was far weaker than Yin Yang's. Before they could understand what was going on, Yin Yang had already barged through. Then, there was a loud boom. It was Yin Yang, who had not yet exhausted his momentum, breaking through the barrier in the water and entering the vast ocean. Yin Yang managed to escape from the Imperial City, but before he could thank his lucky stars, he felt a heavy sense of injury and helplessness. He knew that he had yet to truly escape, so he dared not relax. Forcefully activating his water manifestation power, he turned himself into a water droplet again and sped upwards. Fortunately, the oceanic suppressing staff's power that the Zhu Hai crowd had unleashed earlier was halted by Yun Yang's saber. Otherwise, if they were to turn into water and escape now, they would probably be trapped in their own trap. Neptune's pursuit of Yun Yang was almost in front of and behind him, but Yun Yang was already nowhere to be seen. With another roar, Neptune's manifestation appeared abruptly. It was the true form of Naga with 3 heads and 8 arms. An awe-inspiring curtain of light enveloped the sea in an instant. As far as the eye could see, the seawater had turned into a combination of blue sea and blue sky. Amidst the jade-green sea, there was a speck of white light that seemed to be flying upwards. He is over there. Sea Race General Mobilization Order. Capture Supreme Cloud at all costs. All sages, Saint Venerables, and saints, move out at all costs. Disregard casualties. Seal the sea. Seal the seawater. Supreme Cloud must be killed in the sea. The Sea Emperor rushed towards the surface of the sea as he gave out orders. Following the Ocean King's order, the entire sea began to tremble. Countless experts of the sea race rode on the waves, tearing through the void and seawater as they charged towards the surface of the sea. Their momentum was unprecedented. For a moment, the entire sea churned like a pot that had been boiled. Emperor Rock and the others were still standing guard at the top of the mountain to prevent Yun Yang from wreaking havoc. In the midst of his boredom, he suddenly saw the entire sea emit a dazzling golden light that was quickly extinguished. Then, it emitted an even more dazzling golden light once again. Has the sea race gone mad? Are they activating the divine staff's power twice in a row? All the sovereigns were extremely confused by what they were seeing. A moment later, the sea churned like a pot that had been boiled. What the hell was going on? Could there have been a great battle? Emperor Peng, Emperor Eagle, and the others watched attentively. They even took pleasure in Emperor Peng's misfortune. It looked like something big had happened to these fellows of the sea race. They deserved it. It was unknown whether some powerhouse of the sea race coveted the Sea Emperor's divine staff of suppressing sea, or perhaps some other change had occurred. Just as the sovereigns were focused, the seawater beneath them suddenly split apart as if it had exploded. A faintly discernible white light shot up into the sky, carrying an immeasurable amount of seawater with it. It flashed past and disappeared in midair. Almost at the same time, a stalwart figure with 3 heads and 8 arms, similarly engulfed in billowing waves, rushed up as well and roared, "Supreme Cloud! Leave the divine weapon behind!" They rushed into the air and began to fight in all directions. There was clearly no one near the space where the imposing figure stood, but the Sea Emperor continued to unleash ferocious attacks as if he was fighting an invisible person. A moment later, many experts of the sea race emerged from the sea. There were so many of them that it was as if all the experts of the sea race had gathered in one place. It was an unprecedented scene. Suddenly, the Sea Emperor of the horizon let out a roar, and a muffled groan came from the air. A figure finally appeared. It was Yun Yang. He staggered backward, his body covered in wounds and blood dripping from head to toe. There was almost no unscathed flesh on his body. Emperor Peng and the other sovereigns could not help but suck in a cold breath when they saw this scene. This heaven's yellow supreme cloud was truly audacious. He had actually gone to the bottom of the sea to cause trouble. But, what had he done? How could he have made the Sea Emperor come after him in such a frenzied manner, risking his life? Previously, the Sea Emperor had only limited himself to commanding and had not personally taken action. Now, not only had he taken action, but he had also used his divine form. The series of attacks just now had been his ultimate technique. He did not care about anything else, and every move he made was to perish together with the enemy. He did not care about the cost and did not care about anything. There was also the group of top combat power of the sea race. All of them looked like they had suffered heavy injuries and could not even stand properly, but they still charged forward without a care for their own safety. All of them gritted their teeth, wanting nothing more than to swallow Yun Yang alive. How much hatred and resentment did they have for them to do this? It took less than a blink of an eye for Yun Yang to be attacked by dozens of saint-level powerhouses when he was flung out of the air and surrounded by dozens of saint-level experts. Even Emperor Peng felt a chill run down his spine when he saw this, and his body was covered in cold sweat. If it were me, I'm afraid I would have been killed long ago. Watching Yun Yang roar in the air and fight bravely, the gazes of Emperor Peng and the others were inexplicably complicated. No matter how unwilling they were to admit it, the heaven's yellow supreme cloud, who had once sold all kinds of fruits and swindled people in the demon race with the cultivation base of a saint venerable, had now grown to a height that the other sovereigns of the demon race could only look up to. His cultivation base was no longer lower than that of Phoenix Emperor and Demon Emperor, but it was enough to be on par with them. At this moment, he was resisting the siege of nearly 60 saints of the sea race led by Neptune with his own strength. He could even put up a stubborn resistance and fight for his life. Even when he was covered in wounds, even when his injuries were severe, even when he could only defend himself and had no power to retaliate, all the experts in the bound of universe had to admit that Yun Yang was already on the same level as the Demon Emperor, Neptune, and Phoenix Monarch, the pinnacle of the world. He was a peerless figure. Yun Yang has completely matured now. Emperor Peng's tone was filled with emotion. Recalling how the heaven's yellow supreme cloud had advanced bravely, even he, the sovereign of a race, could not help but sigh in admiration. However, with his cultivation base of a saint venerable, his incarnation had entered the demon race and stirred up a storm, causing chaos in the entire demon race. There were even signs of internal strife. After enduring the demon clan's heaven-sealing forbidden technique and being wanted all over the world, he still managed to return to the bound of universe unscathed. When he came again, he had already advanced to the level of a sage. After that, he did not go back. He kept causing trouble here, fighting with the Eagle Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor, the Tiger Emperor, the Leopard Emperor, and now the Ocean Emperor. Every battle was an extreme battle where he had a slim chance of survival. Even though there were many saint-level cultivators in the demon race, none of them had such rich combat experience as Yun Yang. It could be said that the heaven's yellow supreme cloud's experience in the demon race was a gamble with his life on the line. With so many dangers, so many adventures, and so many extreme battles, Emperor Peng and the others could not help but break out in sweat and shudder at the thought of it. However, he had come all the way. He did not die and had grown all the way to where he was now. The heaven's yellow supreme cloud is indeed a hero of his generation. A peerless prodigy. I'm inferior. Emperor Peng could not help but sigh. He thought of himself and wondered if he had been living too comfortably all these years. Even though he was severely injured and his physical strength was exhausted, Yun Yang still wielded his saber like it was flying. Saber light streaked across the sky like a cold bolt of lightning. The experts of the Sea clan who besieged Yun Yang all had wounds on their bodies. Blood splattered endlessly and rained down from the sky. However, Yun Yang's indomitable spirit did not make the experts of the Sea clan retreat. All of them seemed to have gone mad as they cheered for a fierce battle, never backing down. Yun Yang's situation was inevitably getting more and more dangerous. Ever since he left the sea, no one, be it Yun Yang or the experts of the Sea clan, spoke a word related to this battle. Eagle Emperor, who was watching the battle coldly from the side, suddenly had a gleam in his eyes. When Sea Emperor first came out, he said in a fit of rage, "Yun Yang, put down the divine weapon." Could Yun Yang have stolen some divine weapon of the Sea clan and caused the Sea clan to besiege him and not stop until he's dead? His eyes grew brighter and brighter. Then, could the divine weapon that Yun Yang took be the oceanic suppressing staff? When he mentioned the sea suppressing divine staff, the Eagle Emperor's body couldn't help but tremble. The eyes of Emperor Peng, Emperor Tiger, and the others lit up like searchlights as well. How many divine weapons were there in this world? To be able to be called a divine artifact, it seemed like there was only one of them right now. Another loud crash resounded. Yun Yang was flung away like a kite with a broken string. Along the way, new wounds were added to his body. In just a blink of an eye, there were another 50 to 60 new wounds. Yin Yang bellowed as if his life depended on it. Purple chi filled the sky as the purple jade flute appeared once more. He did not ponder what skill he was going to use anymore. Instead, he retaliated violently and broke a high-level saint's body in half. After his successful attack, he shouted angrily, "See, Emperor. Even if you kill me today, don't even think about taking back the oceanic suppressing staff." The direction he retreated towards was where Emperor Peng and the others were. See, Emperor was enraged. "You're courting death." Since the beginning of the gang fight, he had been suppressing Yun Yang with the most ferocious attacks. He did not even have the time to catch his breath, much less the time to speak. It was all to prevent Yun Yang from opening his mouth and becoming an additional variable. Now, this fellow was clearly at the end of his tether and could die at any time, but he had found such an opportunity. And this sentence could possibly change the outcome of this battle. As expected, as soon as Yun Yang spoke, no less than 30 to 40 saints of the demon race who were watching the battle from the other side of the mountain widened their eyes. They looked at each other without blinking, as if they were afraid of missing out on any information. Emperor Peng, who had been watching from the sidelines, let out a long howl and flew up first. Almost at the same time, the Eagle Emperor and the others flew up as well, followed by the Tiger Emperor and Panther Emperor. Countless experts of the demon race pounced over like a swarm of bees. See, Emperor was enraged. "Rock Emperor. What are you all doing?" Emperor Peng laughed harshly. "What are we doing? We're just upholding some justice. We're watching you fight with numbers and bully others. It's really against morality. We're enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens." See, Emperor said angrily, "Do you know what you're doing? You're helping humans. Are you trying to cause a war between the sea race and the demon race? This is a period of cooperation between the two races. Are you doing this because of the demon emperor's instructions?" Emperor Peng laughed out loud. "When did I intend to destroy the cooperation between the two races? Although Supreme Cloud is a human, he's also the sworn brother of the demon race's Fox Emperor and Cat ancestor. Naturally, he's also an old friend of ours. No matter what, we have to give those two brothers some face. We can't let their brothers be bullied by you and die in one day." As they spoke, the demon emperors were not far from Yun Yang. Yun Yang laughed when he heard this. "Emperor Peng and Eagle Emperor are indeed my big brother's good brothers. I believe the two brothers will still be smiling in the afterlife." As soon as he said this, the faces of Emperor Peng, Eagle Emperor, Fox Emperor, and the others flushed red. The situation was urgent, and there was no excuse to forcefully intervene. The sovereigns had no choice but to use the Fox Emperor's name. They were already upset, and when they were provoked by Yun Yang's words, they felt even more bitter. Yun Yang's face was pale, and he had little mystical chi left. The endless divine art that he was still using was already difficult to move. He really could not hold on any longer and urgently needed some time to catch his breath. Otherwise, he would not have come up with such a bad plan to lure the demon emperors over. As the Eagle Emperor and the other demon emperors intervened forcefully, the sea race's attack was still ongoing, but it was still affected. Yun Yang, who was still besieged, finally had some breathing room. The three parties had probably fallen into a very subtle stalemate. Seeing that the demon emperors were about to intervene in the battle, the sea race was furious. They did not know if they should split up to stop the demons. Yun Yang, who was already exhausted and barely holding on, suddenly unleashed the last of his strength. Not only did he force the besiegers to retreat, but he also soared up into the sky. Yun Yang looked like he had escaped, but it was actually just a fleeting moment of invincibility. The attack had already used up his remaining mystical chi and skill, leaving him with no energy to escape. Even if he had some energy left, how could he survive when faced with so many demon emperors of the bird species who were famous for flying? Below, the demon race and sea race's experts rushed over together, targeting Yun Yang with murderous intent. However, Yun Yang was not someone who would act rashly. What he did just now was, of course, a deliberate move. He let out a long laugh. Ha ha ha. Since I can't bring this oceanic suppressing staff away, I'll hand it over to you. Emperor Peng, not only because you've helped me, but also because you still remember the words Fox Emperor. The office's stereo went silent. I got someone to fix it. After an entire afternoon, I found out that the wiring had been rearranged, and I tried connecting it to electricity. I found out that there was a power outage. I'm speechless. It's fine if I don't know, but Nitrogen. You're the one who fixed the stereo, but you don't know either. I think this is too weird. I even paid $100 in the end. It's been a few hours, but I'm still depressed. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.